Welcome. I'm Kathy from Stitch It Together, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for joining me for this PatternCAD class. The interest in this free session has been incredible, and I am really thrilled to help you get started with one of my very favorite tools in QCT Pro 6 PatternCAD. Today's class is about the basics of drawing in PatternCAD, the foundation that you need before you can do anything more advanced. PatternCAD is an amazingly powerful program, and once you understand the core tools, you can use them in all kinds of different ways. In this class, you're going to learn how to move around inside PatternCAD, how to bring in existing patterns so you can copy and modify them, how to use a template to stay inside a boundary, how to import background pictures for tracing and reference, and finally, how to use PatternCAD with Select and Sew to place and edit irregular patterns. These are the essential skills that everything else in PatternCAD is built on. And whether you eventually want to design your own patterns, edit patterns you already own, or use PatternCAD alongside Select and Sew, you'll be using the same basic tools over and over again. I want to acknowledge that there are other wonderful PatternCAD teachers out there. Marie at the Quilted Poodle, Carla, and so many others at Grace Company. There are some videos by Baby Lock and many others on YouTube. PatternCAD is deep, and no one knows every single thing it can do. And there are often multiple ways to accomplish the same thing, so learning from different sources is a great strategy. I encourage you to find other teachers too. Other than what I'm saying right now, this video isn't scripted, and I'm not planning to edit it. So if I stumble over a word or I say left when I mean right, I hope you'll just forgive me. In a live class, students can stop me and say, "What did you just say?" But in a YouTube video, I don't have any of those cues. So I'm going to do my best to explain things clearly and at a pace that works for most people. But the most important thing you can do after this class is to practice. PatternCAD is a hands-on skill, and the more you play with it, the more comfortable you'll become. And if you find that you still struggle or you want extra help, I do offer this class and many others in person and one-on-one live virtual sessions for $45 an hour. You can find me on Facebook as Stitch It Together LLC, or use the contact information on my YouTube profile, or you can just call me 540-840-2884. So with all that said, let's get started. The three main ways that I use PatternCAD are in editing existing patterns, drawing my own patterns, and then using it alongside Select and Sew to place irregular patterns. All three rely on the same foundational drawing skills and editing skills. That's exactly what we're about to learn here today. So PatternCAD has 4 tasks that you use simultaneously almost every time you do anything in PatternCAD. I wanted to go through some of those things and some of those ideas with you first, so that when we're not inside of PatternCAD, I can talk to you about them in isolation just a little bit. So when you first open up PatternCAD, you're going to see that you have a grid, but that grid isn't just one page. You're really looking at several layers all at once together. And that's something important that you need to start learning how to do, is work in those layers with PatternCAD. Then you have drawing. The next thing you'd probably want to do is, once you see that grid, you'd want to start drawing. But there are several different ways to draw in PatternCAD, and the two easiest and the most common that you would use would be with your nodes on or your nodes off. And those are the ones that I'm going to be talking about today. You also have mirrors and you have easy draw, which those are more advanced skills, and I would not recommend trying those until you are comfortable drawing with your nodes on and your nodes off. You're also going to need to edit your lines when you use the different drawing tools. If you use nodes on or off, you will still need to edit, but particularly when you're drawing with nodes off, you will need to shape your line as you go, and you will need to select no matter what, you need to select what you're going to be editing, but you will be editing an awful lot more using the nodes off method than when you're with nodes on. And finally, you need to optimize. I highly recommend that you optimize as you go. Now, you may recognize optimize from if you've done a pantograph or you've done select and sew. If you were to have breaks in your pattern, you would see it in the optimize screen, and you might have been able to fix them in optimize. You're going to see that same screen, but you're going to use it an awful lot more when you're in PatternCAD than when you're using a pantograph. And it's really important that you understand all the functions and all the things that you can, the information you can get and all the things that you can do inside of Optimize as you go. Okay, so your layers. When you first open up PatternCAD, you see this gridded screen. And when you first open it, it has nothing on it. You're going to want to start drawing or you're going to want to start bringing in a pattern. And the very first layer, the very top layer, is your active layer or your top layer. And that's where you can draw and where you can edit. But if you want to bring in something else, another pattern, or if you're working with small designs or multiple designs and you've done one section of the design and you want to make sure that nothing happens to it, you can bring it down to the bottom layer, or you need to bring it down to the bottom layer to import another picture or another object into PatternCAD. You're going to find that you're going to swap between these layers, and then when you want them to become all one drawing, you're going to want to merge them together and save them. But you also have two other layers that are reference layers that are, we can say that they're underneath, although these two layers are called the top and the bottom. You have two reference layers. You often won't use them together because you can't edit these layers. You can have a template. You might use a template, say, for example, you need something to sit inside of a triangle, and you need to be sure that it fits inside that triangle. You might already have a template, or you might make a template that you can lay underneath all of these two layers, and you don't have to swap between that layer. You're always going to see it. Another common way to use PatternCAD is if you want to import in a picture. Maybe you've made a sketch of something and you want to trace over the top of that, or you have taken a picture of your block or your quilt and you want to bring that in and lay things on top of it. You can import a background layer. Now, you cannot edit those layers, but you can always see them. How do you move between the layers? When you first come in, this might not be really evident to you. So way up here at the top, you have this right here that says layers. It was at the top of the top. So you have this toolbar right here, and then you have these words right up here. So you're going to want to click on layers, and then a submenu will come up, and it will have several different ways that you can work with that layer. You can copy to the bottom layer. Beware, this is probably not something that you want to use very often. You can often end up with more copies than you think of something, so be careful if you're going to use that one. Swap layers, that's the one you're probably going to use the most often. That will allow you to bring the top layer to the bottom, and then the bottom layer comes up to the top, so now they're reversed. You can merge your bottom to your top. You often will want to do that when you're ready to have everything all together as one pattern. And then you can merge the top to the bottom. Now be careful again with that one because you can often end up with copies that you don't want. So the two ones that you're probably going to use the most frequently and that are the easiest to use are swap layers and merge the bottom to the top. When you start drawing in PatternCAD, there are two different ways to draw. You can draw with your nodes on, and that feels the most like freehand drawing, and you can draw with your nodes off. And that often could be referred to as drawing like dot to dot. But there are several things that both of these types of drawing have in common, and that you're going to have a start and a stop point. So what happens is that as you're drawing, you have these line segments. So this is a line segment right here. And by default, when you're in freehand drawing, it's going to be a straight line. But it is going to join every single one of those line segments all together to make it look like it's a smooth, continuous line. And every line segment where one line segment is joined to another is going to have a node. And when you have a continuous line, it has a start point and a stop point. And that is the same for the dot to dot. And while this picture only has straight lines, that is not true. You can draw any shape that you want, but it will feel like dot to dot drawing. And each one of those lines is a line segment. And where they're joined together is called a node. And when you have a continuous line, the continuous line has a start point and a stop point. And again, every single line has a line type. Even when you're doing the nodes on drawing, you have a line type. You can have a straight line, you can have a spline. And when we go to edit these types of lines, you'll see that a spline has two handles on it to help shape it. You have an arc, and that has a handle, a single handle, and they will have curves that look like a circle. And you'll have a parabola that will have a single handle on it. And these are shapes that will be deeper, and you can move and shape more deep curves and have an apex that is not like a circle. Well, how do you want to draw? How do you actually draw? First, you want to make sure that you're in the draw menu. On the right hand of your screen, you're going to see a box that looks like this. And when you are in the draw mode, you have this menu that right here. And when you want to go and draw, you're going to want to use a device. You don't really want to use your finger. You can use a stylus, but you would still need to have something. You would need to have a keyboard, and you will need to have something where you can left and right click, or editing is going to be very difficult. But for the most part, with your mouse or with your mouse pad, you're going to want to left click to begin your line and then draw. Bring your mouse to where you need to end the line and unclick, just release the left click button. Editing. So you're going to be going back and forth between the draw menu and the edit menu. I know this screen looks like a lot, so let me just explain it to you just a little bit. Once you click on the edit, you're going to need to then select, what am I going to edit? And you do that by selecting your nodes. And there's more than one way to do that. If you're going to select just one line, you would want to use your mouse, make sure that you're in edit, and you would want to left click and then slide a box around the node, two of them that you want to. Let me go backwards again here. Sorry. Uh, doesn't want me to go backwards. Let me pause and get back to where I want to go. Okay, I'm back on the screen that I wanted to be on. You're going to be going back and forth between these two edit and draw functions right here. And when you want to do a single line, you would want to left click on your mouse and slide your mouse to make a box. A box will form. If you've used PowerPoint or anything else, this will be a familiar task with you. And select the nodes that you want to edit. Or you can use some of these functions right here. You're going to find that you're going to use this one right here an awful lot. While it doesn't select everything, it unselects everything. And you should do that often when you're editing so you don't have some things selected that you don't remember are selected. So you're going to use this an awful lot. Or if you want to move something, all your things at once, you might use select all. And then there will be times where you would want to use these functions too. But you're going to want to use edit, and then you're going to show QCT what you want to edit. How to edit when you have your nodes, when you're using the nodes off feature. Now, this is the one thing where you need to have a keyboard for a certain. If you're going to be using the nodes off method for drawing, and that's the way that I use it the most, you have a special function, a special way to edit, and that's to use your space bar. So when you're drawing and you are in the draw mode, if you draw a line and then immediately tap your space button, your space bar, it will then select the last line, those two endpoints, your start and your stop of the last line you just drew, so that you can shape that line using the handles we're going to talk about next. So how to edit with your handles. When you are drawing with your nodes off, where you need to shape your line as you go, you're going to have these empty boxes. So when you have selected your endpoints, just like you see in this picture right here, you end up having handles. With a spline, you would have two. With an arc, you will have one. And with a parabola, you will have one. And when you first tap on the space bar, it's going to look like a straight line. And then you shape the line to give it its shape. And you'll left click and drag to get the box to shape that line. And on the arc and the parabola, it would be the same thing. You'll left click to get a hold of that handle and then drag it to the shape or the area you want it to be, and then let it go. Let go of the mouse, the left click button, and that line will stay where you've left it. So draw and edit work together. And you're going to be going back and forth between these two buttons right here. And it will not automatically go back to draw if you've edited something. So you're going to make sure that you come back to the draw function. Optimize. Optimize is something that, particularly if you are working with more than one pattern and you have more than one shape that you're working with, you want to use optimize quite frequently. So let me tell you, when you go into the optimize, and again, it looks exactly the same as when you go into use optimize in Pantograph, but you probably have never used all of the little functions and all the buttons when you're then in Pantograph, but you will probably use them all when you're using PatternCAD. So the information that you will see inside of the boxes, it will tell you the number of line segments that you have, and they'll be numbered with these yellow buttons right here, this yellow circles, and that's how you'll know how many line segments you have. Oftentimes, you're trying to get to one so that you have a continuous line. Most of the time you can get there, sometimes you can't. But you will also be able to know the stitch order. Inside of each one of those little round circles, it will have a number, and that will tell you the order of your stitching path. You'll also be able to tell whether you have a break in your line and where that break is at, because you'll see a blue box like this, a blue break in the line right here. Sometimes you'll just see a blue dot only on top of the green, and the red would mean that you have a break in the pattern, not necessarily a jump stitch. You'll also be able to see the animated path. There'll be a where you can push a button and it will show you the path that QCT wants to take. But you can change some things in Optimize as well. You can change the stitching order. You can reverse a stop and a start point on any of the segments so that you can more easily get it to be a single line. You can join a stop and a start, and you can work towards that continuous line through the whole design instead of just one section at a time. How to navigate inside that optimized menu. So I'm going to talk to you just right now about things that you probably have not used inside of Optimize, and you will use them to isolate a single line. So I want to talk about this box right here. It says show in it, and by default, it will have a check mark in it. When the check mark is in it, it is going to show you all of your lines, just like this box is showing you right here. So it will show you all of your line segments. So if you have a lot of these lines, you may even be confused as to which line is which. You may have so many of them that you don't know which one is stitching out first and where that line starts and stops. So if you uncheck that box right there, where it says show, and whatever number is in this box, and again, you can control it right here, just like with many things in PatternCAD, there's more ways to do this. If you click on the box, a calculator will come up and you can enter the number, or you can use the plus and the minus to get to the number you want to see. So in this box, you see them all. In this diagram right here, this was unselected and you can see 1. So when 1 is on, it will show you where the start is for this line segment and where the stop is. If I wanted to reverse the direction of this line and make the start and stop points reversed, I would just click on that line, anywhere on that line, and the start and the stop points would reverse. You can also change the stitch order. So in this one, they're kind of small, but you can see that there are numbers inside of these yellow circles. If you want to change the stitching order, again, you're going to want to look at this function right here in this box down here. Whatever number is inside of this box, you can click on the yellow circle and it will become that stitch order. So right now this says 1, 2, and 3, and that is the order that I would want it to be in. But if I wanted it to reverse and be 1, 2, 3, I could reverse that as well by putting 1 right here, and I click on this box, then the number would automatically become 2 in here. Then I would click on 2, and then the number would automatically change to 3, and I could click on that box and it could be 3. So you can control which order your segments are going to be in. And then you can also control the stop and the start point so that you can start joining things together to make a continuous line. The PatternCAD workflow, you are going to have to be able to use all of these simultaneously. And there really is no way to use one without using some of the others. And you're often going to find that for very complicated things, you're going to use all four almost all at once. And so it's very important that you understand what they all are, because using the PowerPoint was the only way I could think of to try and talk about some of these things in isolation, because it's very, very hard to only work with layers or only work and draw without edit and your layers. So you're going to need to be able to work with all of these things and understand what all of these things are all at once. So the four big ideas that we've talked about here and the four ways that you're going to be able to need to learn to use PatternCAD all at once are: with your layers, you're going to learn how to go back and forth between your layers to understand that you can see them all at the same time, but you can really only edit and draw on the top layer, and then you'll swap between two, an inactive layer and a top layer, and then have some reference layers underneath of that. There are two different ways to draw with your nodes on and your nodes off. That's what we'll be talking about in this video. But there are also some drawing options where you can use mirrors and where you can use easy draw, and we'll not be talking about those inside of this. That might also be considered editing. When you're going to be editing your lines, you're going to select what you're going to edit, and then you choose what the action is. Like, are you going to move something? Are you going to do something with just a single line? Are you going to rotate it? So you need to select what you're going to be editing first and then choose an action. And all at once, you're going to want to use optimize often so that you can make sure that your stitching order is not left to the end. You want to put things in the order they want to stitch in and try and keep your largest possible continuous line all at once before you add more complication to something, and not leave it all till the end. So those are the big ideas, and the next section of this video will be actually in PatternCAD. So here we are inside of QCT, and we're going to go into, and it's QCT Pro 6, and I have the latest version right here. I'm sorry if you have Plus or the edge-to-edge tier, you do have to have PatternCAD to use PatternCAD. You do have to have Pro to have PatternCAD. So I'm going to open up PatternCAD. And while I'm going to be talking about layers, I can't do it in isolation. So there's going to be, I'm going to introduce some other concepts as well, and I will circle back to them. The order that I want to talk about things is I'm going to talk about layers first, then I'm going to talk about drawing, then I'm going to talk about editing, I'm going to be talking about optimize, and it won't go to optimize unless I have something to optimize. And then I'm going to talk about using select and sew with PatternCAD to place some irregular patterns. So when you first open up PatternCAD, you see your screen here with the grid. And it looks like it's one layer, but it's really not. So if you were to start drawing on this, let me go to draw, and you're right here, anything that you can right now see and edit. So if we were going to edit and select right here, anything that you can draw and that you can edit is on your top layer. Right now, my color is pink for my lines, and you're going to see that your lines, you can change the colors of them anytime you want. And let me just take care of some of that housekeeping and show you that before we continue. If you need to change the colors of things, and you probably will, you want to go to this button right here, Options, and anything that you see right here, PatternCAD, you can change your line color, you can change what color your nodes are, you can change your handles, mirrors, trim, bottom, and your grid. And there would be a good reason to want to make these very contrasting. Is when you do by the defaults, let me do that. I'm going to say, okay, this is going to be gray. And if I send it, I'm going to now show you, I'm going to send this line to the bottom layer, layers, swap layers. It does turn blue, but it's not a very high contrasting color. So if you were to be tired or in a hurry, you might not be able to clearly see which layer you're dealing with. So I like to make mine very contrasting. So for what we're doing right now, I'm going to change my line color. I'm going to show you how to do that. This box, when you push on the lines, I'm going to pick something that's very bright. I'm going to say the pink, and then you want to say OK over here in this box. Then I'm going to say I want my bottom layer to be very different. I want to make it yellow. I'm going to say OK over here. You see it's changed over here. And the reason I want to point this out is because what you don't see here is that your template, you cannot change the color of your template. And unfortunately, the default color of your template is very close to the color of the bottom layer. And since we're going to be talking about those, you may want to change your colors so that you'll know clearly when you're using your top layer, your bottom layer, and your template. So with that changed, I'm going to say okay. And you'll see that it's changed. My bottom layer is now yellow, and I can bring it back up to the top, swap layers again. Now it's back up on the top and it kept it gray. Anything new will be pink. So I'm going to close this off because really what we're going to be talking about is layers. And I just wanted to explain why my colors may look different than yours. So what I want to do now is I want to actually do something that is a task. I want to do something to show you how you would use your layers. A very common way to use your layers is if you wanted to make your own pattern from existing patterns. You would need to use your layers to do that. So I want to start off with a template. Let's say that we need to make a pattern that will fit inside a square. So I already have a template. Grace has one that is a square. So let me show you that first. We're going to pull up our template. You want to go to your toolbox. You want to say template right here. You're going to say load. And here they are. Anything that has a green line in it has a mirror in it. And that's something you will want to explore later when you've learned some of the basics. But we're going to choose one that doesn't have a mirror in it right now. And we're just going to say the block. We're going to open this up. So right now you'll see that it's blue, and that's the color of the template. And there is nothing I can do except for I can zoom in and I can zoom out. That is all I can do with this with a template. I can't edit it. I can't rotate it. I can't do any of the editing features. I can't crop it. There's nothing else I can do to it. It is just a reference layer. Likewise, I can't stitch it out either. So I can't save it any other way, and I can't stitch it. This is just for me to be able to see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring in my first pattern. So I'm going to select, you could draw if you wanted to, but I'm going to join patterns. That's the easiest way to show you about the layers, which is the focus of this section of the video. So I'm going to select, I'm going to go to my patterns, and I'm going to select this butterfly right here. So it's too big for our box. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is I want to go to optimize. So now that there's actually something on our screen, when I hit the optimize button, we'll actually go into the optimize function. Here we go. So what I can see from optimize is that I have one continuous line because we only have one red circle with a yellow circle with the number 1 in it. I can also see where my stop and my start are, which is often the case with blocks. The stop and the start are right up on top of each other, and they're not on the outside. I've noticed a lot of the Grace blocks like the start in the center, towards the center of a design. And that's very common for blocks of any kind. And it's just good to know in advance before you start doing anything where those stops and starts are, and that everything before you get going is in one continuous line. So now that I have that knowledge, I'm going to say, okay. And I want to size this. So that's the next thing I want to do. I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to size something. So I'm going to need to go to edit. I've clicked on edit. And the next thing I'm going to hit is select. And I'm going to use one of these functions right here. I'm going to say select all. So now you can see that the hollow circles, those nodes, became solid. That's how I know that it's selected. Well, what you can also see is that I can tell by looking at this drawing that this drawing was made by using the nodes off feature because they have all these handles on them, which means I could just shape these lines if I wanted to. I'm going to say undo so I haven't changed anything. But that's just to let you know what you're seeing on the screen. But what I really want to do now is to back up, I said edit, said select, and select all. And with all of my nodes selected, I need to pick an action. I need to say that I want to size. You're going to see that when I select size, that this menu is going to change. So there we go. So now I have the functions that go along with size. One of them is the ratio lock right here. And because I just want to make this smaller, I don't want to just make it smaller in one direction or the other. I want to make the whole thing smaller. I want to lock the ratio lock. The next thing I want to bring your attention to is this button right here called your step button. And this has tiny, small, medium, large, and jumbo. And what this does is it controls how much any single setting button is going to change that pattern. Tiny is very tiny. If I were to try to use, you can see how small it's going. That's just going to take too long. So I want to increase my step to probably medium, and now I'm just going to make it smaller. That's probably good. And now I am going to use the size function to the move. I'm going to change from the size function to the move function. So I've already have everything is still selected. You just got to make sure that when you're going between these functions that everything that you want to move now is selected, and it is. So when I click on the move button, this is going to change again. So when I hit this function, all of the buttons that are related to it are going to change. And here they are. These are the arrows. And so I could move this up and over in different ways. So let me just show you with the medium step on, it would move about that much with a single click. But you can also use the drag feature when everything is selected. And so I'm going to move it by using the drag feature. I'm just going to kind of move it to over here. You can see now that with all of these nodes showing that it's kind of hard to see our pattern. So first I'm going to zoom in, but I want to tell you about this feature right here, your nodes button. And this can be confusing because when people will say, well, turn your nodes off. Well, really what you're doing is you're not turning them off, and there's not related to the draw when you say nodes on or off. What you're referring to is whether you're disappearing them or not, whether you can actually see your nodes or not. So I'm going to turn the nodes off so that we can see our design better, but they are still there. And I click them on, they never go away. My nodes are always going to be there. I'm just not going to be able to see them. So I'm going to make it easier to see my actual design and work with this pattern by making them invisible. But they are in fact still there. And I can select them whether I can see them or not. So now I've selected edit and select all. So even though I can't see those nodes, if I turn them on now, you can see that they are selected. So be very careful when you have your nodes on or off to visible or invisible is a better way to put it. Because if you select something and you can't see if your nodes are selected, we'll have some things that might change on you that you're not expecting if you can't see which nodes are selected. So right now I have them all selected, and I can kind of move it maybe a little bit closer to where I want it to be fuller into that box, just like that. But now I'm going to turn the nodes off, and I'm also going to unselect everything. So, all right, I have my butterfly that is in the box now. But if I want to bring in another pattern, watch what happens. I'm going to say select pattern, but it's going to say you will lose your current work unless you save it. Do you want to continue? Well, I don't want to lose my work right now, so I'm going to say no. What this means is that you can only design with one pattern at a time in PatternCAD. You have to use the layers in order to bring another pattern in. So what needs to happen, notice that this is pink right now, is I need to bring this to the bottom layer so that I can then bring a new pattern to the top layer. So what I need to do is swap layers. So this layer isn't going to go away. I'm just going to swap it. Right now, I have something on the template layer and I have something on my active layer, but there's nothing in the inactive layer. And while you can't see it, it is still there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap those two layers. I'm going to go to the layers right here. I'm going to say swap. Well, now we can see that that's yellow. Well, I want to change that because I'm not liking right now that it's yellow because that's a little bit too light for me. So let's go to options, and we're going to go to my bottom layer. And I think maybe what I want to do is maybe make it maroon. And I'm going to say okay right here. And I'll say okay. And now this has changed to a different color, to the maroon color. So this is again on my inactive layer, and I want to pull in a new pattern. So now with this at the inactive layer and me being able to see it, I'm going to say select patterns, and notice now the menu, now I'm able to do that. I didn't get that same error message. So I want to select the B. I'm going to say open, and here's my B, and it's come in very large, as we can see. Let me move my screen a little bit. You can move around on your screen by using the arrows. Often, if you've used Word or Windows, you would be very familiar with the arrows that can pan through your screen a little bit. So I want to go to optimize right away. Okay, great. I can see it is in one line and that my stop and my start points are not on the outside anyplace. They're right up on top of each other right here in interior of the pattern. And that's very good information to know. So just like with the other pattern, I want to size it. So I'm going to, this is what I do. You don't have to do it this way. I'm going to leave the nodes invisible. But what I want to do first is I want to make sure I'm in edit. I've tapped that. Select. I've tapped that. I want to unselect all so that I know everything is unselected first. And then I'm going to say select all. So now all of my nodes are selected so that when I go to size something, everything, all of my nodes are selected and nothing is unexpectedly not selected or not unselected. So I'm going to say size. My step is left at medium. My ratio lock is on, and I'm going to size this pattern. Okay. And just as before, I can, with everything selected, I can move it by dragging it. So I'm going to move my B to about right here. And I think maybe I need to make them a little bit bigger. So I'll go back to the size. And again, I'm going to say select. I'll say unselect all and then select all just to be sure that something didn't get unselected when I moved it and everything is now selected. So I'm going to say size and the ratio lock is still on and I may increase him up just a little bit to help fill up this space. I'm going to leave it like that. So let's go back to optimize and make sure everything stayed where it was, and it is. Notice that our stop and start point is right here. So although we're talking about layers, we're going to need to join these now. And notice again, we have 3 layers. Let's talk about our 3 layers because that's the topic. We have a template, we have an inactive layer or the bottom layer where the butterfly is at, and we have our active layer. So if I were to save this right now, it is not going to save the template. It is not going to save the butterfly. It would only save the active layer. And this is the same thing with optimize. When I go to optimize, it is only going to show me what is on the active layer, not anything about that template and not anything about the inactive layer. So that's important to remember is that when you're doing these things, uh, that is what how PatternCAD behaves. Is that if I were to save something, it's only going to save the active layer, and optimize is only going to show me the active layer or the top layer, and all of the edit functions will only act on the active layer or the top layer. It won't act on any of the other layers. So now let's talk about what I want to do. I am going to have to use the draw functions to do this. But in order to make a pantograph, I need to join these two. So let's do that first. So I'm going to go to the draw functions. I'm going to say draw. Let me pause for a second because we've got a window problem here. Let me move this. So I got my windows back so that I can show you what we're working on. So again, we have a stop and a start point that's right here. And again, this is about our layers, but I want to show you how you use these layers. So I'm going to try and make this pantograph. And in order to do that, I need to join the butterfly and the bee first. So my stop point and my start point are right here. I want to go to draw and I want to bring your attention to this box right here, continuous line. When continuous line is checked, it means that when you draw the next line, whatever you're going to draw, is going to be joined to or from the stop point. So I want to demonstrate that. If I have this unchecked and I draw a line just like this, I put my notes back on, it has its own start and stop point right here, and it will also be an optimize. You'll be able to see that these are both on the active layer, and this has its own stop and start point, and this has its own stop and start point. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say this is undo right here. This is the undo button. I'm going to undo that. There we go. Did it twice. I don't know why it had the scatter screen, but there we go. There's undo. And we're back to where we were. And I want to remove my nodes right there so we can see our B. And I'm going to now put the continuous line button on. I also want to change the way that I'm going to draw because I don't want to draw with the nodes on. This can be confusing because we talked about this nodes right here. This is making your nodes visible and invisible, and this is a way of drawing. And we often refer to them as with your nodes on and with your nodes off. But really what it is whether you're drawing with evenly spaced nodes where QCT decides the length of your line segments and when you don't. And so I'm going to turn this off. Oftentimes when you're using with the nodes on, you don't draw with these types of lines, and with the nodes off or unevenly spaced, you use these to draw. And we're going to talk about that more later. But right now, I just want to draw. I'm going to pick draw. I want to use a spline. And what I'm trying to do is to join the butterfly and the bee together. And when I now draw with continuous line, the next line that you're going to see is going to come from the stop point and to where I want it to be. So I think for the sake of, let's just go in this direction. So I think I want it to come out away from the bee first. So I'm going to bring my pointer to where I want that line to end, and I'm going to tap the button. And as you see, that line appeared. I'm going to go ahead and turn my nodes back on so we can see them. And now I want to shape this line because I'm using the nodes off. I will need to shape it. And remember, I used a spline. So now I want to go to Edit, and I'm going to first select. I need to select. So when you go to Edit, you say Edit, and you're going to select. You need to show QCT. Well, what do you want to edit? So I am going to select first this node, and I'm going to zoom in so that I can select the other node. So I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm going to left click and drag. There we go. And it selected more than what I wanted. That's okay. So long as I can get to these two handles now that pop up. These are handles that will now allow me to make this into a spline. And I'm just going to shape this line. We'll talk more about this when we get to the drawing, but I just want to shape this line a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to unselect all, and let's zoom back out. I'm going to turn the nodes so that they're invisible so we can see what we have going here. All right, so now I have my bee, and I have a line that's starting to go towards the butterfly. And let's go back to optimize and see what's happened. Well, we can see that now we don't have a continuous line, but we also don't have a jump stitch. What we have right here is a break in the pattern. And I can fix this two different ways. I can fix this so long as there isn't a jump stitch. A jump stitch would have a blue dot and a line attached with it. I only have a break. It means that when I drew this line, it didn't automatically attach to the other point that's right here. And so I want to change that. Again, there are two ways to do that. I can take care of it in here, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'll show you another way to do it when we encounter this same problem again. So because I don't have a jump stitch, I'm just going to say right here, I'm going to say remove all. Now you can see it joined that line. So I can see that I have a stop point right here and a start point right here. Well, let me go back and point something out to you. So yes, we want to join the butterfly to the bee. And once they're joined, we're also going to need a tail on both of these so that we can join this in to make it a pantograph. And so before I get to the butterfly, I think I want to start that line so that we can join the, once this becomes one pattern, there'll be a way to join it into a pantograph. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to manipulate the optimize feature in order to do that. Because remember, right now, my stop point is right here. So if I try to draw another line, it's with continuous line selected, it's going to come from this line. And I don't want to start from here. I really want to draw a line from here out. And I can do that by just saying, now I'm going to say reverse all. Now I can say reverse all because I only have one line segment. So if I were to tap reverse all and I had more than one line, they would all reverse. So the other way to do that, now again, I could do that because I only have one line right here. But the other way to do that is just to tap on any part of the line itself in Optimize, and it will reverse. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. So there's my stop, and here's my start. I'm going to click on the line. That's all I do was tap on the line, and now you can see it is reversed. So now I can draw a line out from the butterfly in this direction. I'm going to say okay. And now notice I'm still in edit. So if I tried to draw something, I wouldn't be able to. I need to go back into the draw. So I'm going to click on draw right here, and I want a spline again, but if I wanted to change my line type, I could, but I want spline, and continuous line is selected. So now I can just kind of put my arrow, my pointer where I want that line to go, and I'm going to tap on it. There we go. So now that line was created. I'm going to turn my nodes on again. I'm going to say edit. I'm going to select, I'm going to left click to drag that box to select that node. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to left click again. And again, I'll probably select more than what I need. That's okay. I just need to get to these handles. And I might need to zoom in a little bit more for this. So here's my line right here, and I want to shape it a little bit. So here we go. Let's just kind of shape it. All right. I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to zoom back out, zoom back out. Let's go back to optimize and see what we've done. Okay, so once again, we have two line segments and they're right on top of each other again. And so let me show you another way that we can snap all these together. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to leave it as it is. So in order to do that, I'm going to really need to zoom in again. There we go. And let's scroll a little bit. So now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say unselect all. So what has happened is that this line segment right here, that's the line that's on the outside, has not completely joined to the point, the end point, what was the end point. And so I'm going to select that area right there and see if I can unselect these. Zoom in a little bit more if it will let me, and it won't. So I'm going to unselect, see if I can just select this one. There it goes. So there were two circles that were right on top of each other right there, and I'm going to, but they weren't attached. So I'm going to make them into one dot, one continuous, like just one dot. So I'm going to say snap selected. There we go. Now let's go to optimize and see if that worked. It didn't, so that's okay. I tried to do it that way. I will show you that function again. Again, I'm not going to edit this. We're in real time. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. And there's more than one way to accomplish something. So I'll just do it this way. And because it doesn't have a jump stitch, it's just 2 points that didn't want to connect. I'm going to say remove all. And now you see it did join itself. So I have a start right here and I have a stop right here, which is perfect because when we're drawing a pantograph in QCT wants to start on the left. So it's going to actually go to our butterfly first, and then it's going to come from our butterfly and it's going to come down to this. It'll start then from right here and finish out, and then our stop is right here. And I'm going to say, okay. So let's select on, and we're going to zoom on back out, zoom out, zoom out. Okay, so we have 3 layers here. Because this is about our layers, let me get back to that topic again, and let me show you what we have. So we have our template, we have our inactive layer that is the butterfly, and we have our active layer. So I cannot do anything with a template. I cannot do anything with a butterfly, but I can only work with active layer, which invisible nodes, there we go. Now we have our B that is now a continuous line. It's one line with a start there and a stop there. I'm going to say, okay. So now I want to start working with the butterfly, and I could have 2 options. I could use the merge feature and merge them together right now, but I don't really want to do that because I have the bee kind of like I want it, but I don't have the same 2 tails going with my butterfly. And for me, my preference would be to now swap layers again. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say layers. I'm going to swap the layers so that I can leave the bee as it is. Again, the template didn't anything happen with the template. And now I'm at my butterfly and I can start manipulating the butterfly before I try and add everything together. So let's go back to optimize just to make sure everything's like we want it to be. And it is. Our stop and our start points are right here. And it's all one continuous line. I'm going to say, okay. So now I want to, again, start working towards having a tail on the outside of the butterfly that goes out to join the pantographs together, but also a tail or a line that joins these 2 patterns together. So I'm going to go to draw, and we know that the stop point is right here. So let's go towards the B first. I'm going to say draw. I'm going to use spline. I'm also going to zoom in a bit so I can see this pattern a little bit better. And I'm just going to bring my cursor, my arrow, my pointer, whatever you want to call it, to where I want that line to go, and I'm going to tap. So there's my line. I'm going to turn my nodes back on. And now this pattern did not have anywhere near the same number of nodes that this pattern had. I want to bring to your attention that when you see a pattern that was like this, it was either flattened, that had all those nodes, all kinds of nodes in it. It was either drawn with the nodes on method or it was flattened. And a flattened pattern is where QCT, you can do that in this file feature right here. You see flatten pattern, and you would just select everything and say flatten pattern. QCT, oops, undo that. QCT will add a whole bunch of nodes to your pattern to make it smoother, and so that you can use some of the uh, edit features. Some of the edit feature, the more complicated edit features, will not work unless you have a lot of nodes. And so if you've used this method, clearly here they used the nodes off method to draw the butterfly. There would be some of the edit features that you wouldn't be able to use. So if you then flattened that pattern, then you would be able to use those features. However, be careful when you do this because this pattern is far easier to edit because it doesn't have as many nodes than this pattern is. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, so anyway, so back to what I was doing. I'm going to now select, oops, I was in draw, that's why I couldn't work with select. So I need to undo that line and I need to go to edit. And again, you have to go back and forth between draw and edit. QCT does not know what you're doing. So in edit and select, I'm going to left click and draw that box around this one. I'm going to scroll in. I'm going to left click on this one. And because these two are now selected, the same line, the endpoints are selected, I can edit this line, and that's why the shaping handles have appeared. So now I can shape this line. I'm just going to left click on the box and pull up on it. And let's scroll out a little bit or zoom out a little bit towards this one. And I'm thinking, let's unselect all. I might need to direct that line a little bit. So if I had both of the lines selected, I might actually move the line. And I don't want to do that. What I'm going to try and do now is just kind of get this line pointed in the right direction. So I only want to select just that node. And I'm going to kind of pull on it to get it in the down direction. So now I know that I have a start point right here, which is what I want. And let's go to optimize and see what we're working with. So as we saw before, it did not want to join these 2 points. And so let's see if I can get snap to work in this one. There may be so many together that I can't use it, but let me see if I can get it to work this time. So let me zoom in and I'm going to unselect everything. And if you can see really clearly, maybe you can't because it would be hard to see it. These 2 dots right here where I started to draw this line right up here, these 2 dots are not completely on top of each other. And so in order to get them to join together, I'm going to select that right there. So I've left clicked and put the box around it. And while it still might look like there's only one circle there, there really are 2, and they're not completely on top of each other. And I'm going to go to this feature right here, snap selected. There we go. And now I can see there really is only one circle there. So when I go to optimize, I'm hopeful, yes, it did. It joined those 2 points together, and now I have one continuous line. My start node is right here, and my stop point is right here. But remember, I need to now draw another tail going out in this direction to successfully make a pantograph. So in order to do that, I want to manipulate this function right now. I want to reverse my line so that my stop point is right here. So I'm going to say reverse all, or I could just tap on the line. When you have one line, you can do that. So I want my stop to be right here so that when I with draw with continuous line selected, let's zoom out, it will come from this node. So I just want to kind of get it clear of the butterfly body first. So I'm just going to bring my arrow about to here and tap. And now I'm going to do a new skill. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to touch nodes. I'm not going to touch anything except for I drew the line and I immediately touched the space bar. This is why it's important to have a keyboard. So all I did was I drew the line, and then without doing any other thing, nothing in between like I did in the other sections, like I did previously, I tapped the space bar. When you will do that, it will automatically select the last line that you drew so that you can shape it without having to go into the edit functions. So this is the only time it will automatically go into edit and then select the last line that you drew so that you can shape it. This is very helpful when you're in the nodes off drawing mode, and you're going to see this more when we go to the section on drawing. So now I've shaped this line and I have another line going out. So let's go to optimize. And once again, it wanted to not join that line, and I'm just going to say remove, and it's going to remove it for me. But you know that we could have zoomed in and snapped them together that other way, but this is just the easier method. But we have our stop point right here and a start point right here. We need to reverse those because our pantograph goes from left to right. So we need the start point to be back over here. So I'll just say reverse all, or I could have tapped on it. And now I have my start point going from here to here, and I have one continuous line. So if I were to save my butterfly, which I should have told you to do with the bee as well, you could save it so it's like this, but you will save only the butterfly because your template is not part of the active layer and your bee is still part of the inactive layer. So it's not going to save them together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to merge these two because now we want to start joining things together. And so in order to do that, I want to just unselect all first, although I could merge it even with them selected. I'm going to say layers, and I'm going to say merge the bottom to the top. And I'm going to be careful when I do this because if you say merge the top to the bottom, sometimes you will end up with an unexpected copy. So I want to do bottom to the top. I want to bring the B up to the top, merge top to bottom. There we go. So now when I go to optimize, watch what happens. So now I can see both of the patterns because they're both on the top layer in the active layer. So let's look and see what's going on here. We can see that this is one continuous line and this is one continuous line, but they're not in the order that we would like them to be in. It wants to stitch the bee first, and then it wants to be the butterfly. And I can tell that because this yellow circle says 1 and this yellow circle says 2. And I want to swap them. So I'm going to go down to this right here where it says show. And I want to show you something right here. If I unclick this, and because this says 1, it will show me just the number 1 order line segment. If I go on 2, everything here will be unselected. Every other line, if there were more lines, it would be unselected, and it will show you where the second line is and where its stop and start and where it's going to join is. So that's very helpful information when you're working with a whole bunch of designs, and particularly if you maybe have purchased a pattern where you can't introduce one item at a time and you open things up and you might need to fix something and you have a mess going on. This is very, very helpful to know just where the second line is, just where the stop and starts are, and where it wants to join to so you can fix them. So that's what we're seeing right here. So I'm going to click this back again. Everything's there. And I want to make this number 1. And so I'm going to change this box to 1. And when I click on this button right here, it will change. So what that's saying now, this is the first order. This is the first continuous line. This is the second continuous line. And we can see that there wants to be a jump stitch right here. So let's fix that. And again, my start point is right here and my stop point is right here. So I'm going to say OK. So now I'm going to say draw, but let's go back to optimize. So right now it's saying this is my start point and that's a stop point. And then this is the second line. So it's going to start right here and it's going to go to stop. But because QCT, the way the draw function will work, it will not draw a line in continuous line from this stop point. It will only want to draw a stop point from this continuous line. So I'm going to introduce a new skill to us where we need to then not use a continuous line to draw from this point right here. So I'm going to say OK, because while this is a start and a stop, if I were to try and draw a line now with continuous line selected, it wants to draw from this endpoint. And how we know that is because this endpoint is not circled like that. So here's where the start is and here's where the stop is. If I use continuous line, it would come from this line. So now what I want to do is I'm going to uncheck continuous line and I'm going to go to draw, and I still want to use spline, and I'm going to draw a line from this one to this one. So I'm just going to left click from right here to right here. And now I have a line segment. I'm going to tap my space bar and that selects the line, and that will allow me to kind of give this a shape. We'll give it a shape right here. But now I'm going to talk about those snap features again. So I'm going to say unselect all, and you can see that those are not joined, that it really is still its own line segment. And if you go to optimize, you'll be able to see that. It wants to stitch this out, then it wants to stitch this out, and then it wants to stitch this one third, and they're not joined together. So let's see if we can fix that ahead of optimize, or if we're going to use optimize or not. So how I can get these two lines to join together is by that snap feature that we've talked about. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Those two circles, those endpoints are not on top of each other. So I'm going to left click and drag. They're both selected, and I'm going to say snap selected. So now you can see it's only one line segment. That's super. That's awesome. So let me go to unselect to make sure there's nothing selected I can't see. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Okay, so now they're selected. I'm going to say snap selected. And that's indeed what it's done. And it has moved my endpoint. So notice that it moved the endpoint. So we're probably going to have to still use optimize, and that's fine. So we're going to say zoom out. We're going to go to optimize. And we're still seeing that it wants to do it in 3 different sections. So we're going to have to optimize. We're going to change our line order. So let's go to 1. I'm going to unclick this so I can see where everything's at. So here's my line 1. I have a start and a stop. That's good. Show me where 2 is. Okay, well, it still wants this to be 2, and I don't want that. I want it to be third. But it does have a start right here and a stop right here. That's great. That's where it needs to be. Let's go to 3. Okay, so 3 is right here, and it has a start right here and a stop right here. That's where they need to be. So we're just going to change it. Let's put them all back together again. I'm going to bring this back to 1. I'll click on it. It was already 1, but I'll click on it. And so that makes this in the box go to 2. And so I'm going to click on this one to make it 2. There we go. And that's all I needed to do. Once I did that, QCT automatically made it into its own single line pattern. It joined everything else for me. So I'm going to say okay. All right. So now let's take a look at a new feature that I want to show you about, preview. You're going to use this an awful lot when you want to make a pantograph, or if you want to find out if something is continuous. So let's click on it and see what it does. Okay, so what it is showing us is that we have our design, and it will, again, will not show you the template, and it will not show you the inactive layer. It's only going to show you what your continuous line, what your active layer or your top layer will look like as a pantograph, and it will tell you if it's continuous or not, and it's not. So what we can see is that our stop and our start points are not going to be quite connecting. So what it's doing, this is our pattern right here. So the start point of this pattern, when it copies this pattern to make the pantograph, the start point and the stop points aren't quite lining up. So we're going to fix that. So let's go to OK. And there's a way to do that. There's more than one way to do it. The way that I'm going to show you is by this function right here called snap ends. So what I want to do to use this function is I'm going to select this endpoint. I'm going to select this endpoint, and then I'm going to say snap ends. This message appears, and what it says is it appears this design is intended to have separate endpoints. Do you wish only to snap the vertical components of the points? You say yes if you do, and we do, because what we're trying to do is bring the vertical. When it's talking about vertical, it's talking about in the up and down direction. And the only way that this is going to join together as a pantograph is if those stop and start points are at exactly the same height. So that is, in fact, what we want to do, but let's finish reading the message. Or do you wish to snap the endpoints together? And then you would say continue. Well, that is when you want your endpoints to be like they were originally, where they're right up on top of each other before we started editing the butterfly, before we started editing the bee. That's when you want your endpoints to be right up on top of each other so that they're in the same location. And we don't want that. So we don't want to select continue. We're going to say yes. And so now it has moved our endpoints so that they are at the same height. So now when we click on preview, there we go. Now it says it's continuous, and it will show us what our design is going to look like as a pantograph. So it may be that you want to change the location and make the endpoints a little bit smoother. And there is a way to do that. I want to point it out to you, but we're not going to use it in this video because it uses it uses mirrors. And that is another complication that while you absolutely can learn it, we're not going to use that in this video. So I'm just going to show you where it is. You could go to tools and you could say endpoint continuity and click on it, and it will show you, it will use mirrors, a mirror feature, to show you a pattern that is behind it and a pattern that's in front of it. And then you can manipulate these two things, but we're not going to use it today. I just wanted to show you where it is. So I'm going to get rid of it. So we're going to go to clear, and I'm going to say your mirrors. All right, so we're back to where we were. All right, so this is where you would want to save this, your pantograph. And you want to save it not as butterfly or not as bee, but rename it, and you want to save it. And that is how you would have a pantograph. And again, we have now still 3 layers. We have a template. We have our active layer that both layers are on, but we just don't have anything in the inactive layer, but it is always there. But there's one layer that we have not talked about yet, and that is the background layer, and I want to introduce that to you. So I'm going to clear everything to show you the background layer. So when I go on the X out feature, it will take everything that's in the active layer out, and I would have to bring up the inactive layer to clear it, or I could go to the toolbox and say clear, and you could say all, and now everything is gone. So now what I want to do is show you your background layer. So your background layer is not something that QCT has already designed for you. A background layer is often either a picture of something you want to trace or a sketch that you've drawn, and this is how you do that. You click on background and you're going to say load image. Now mine is going to go automatically to the last place that I used an image, and I was using a Dresden plate. That's what I last used. But you may want to find a location on your laptop and make your own file, and always put your pictures into that file so that anytime you open up your QCT and go to load image, it would automatically go back to that file, and you wouldn't have to keep browsing for it. But here you'll see things that I just last worked on inside of this folder right here. One of them was a sketch and one of them is a block. So let me show you how I used each of these. So I'm going to pull in a block. This is a picture that I already made of my block. And then I imported it onto my laptop, and it came in very large. So I'm just now scrolling out. And I'm only zooming out or scrolling out, however you want to say it, because that is the only thing I can do with this picture. I cannot do any other thing. I can't crop it. I can't rotate it. I can't edit the background in any way. The only thing that I can do is draw on it. Some things that you might want to do with your block is you could then maybe decide what kind of pattern. You could maybe audition some patterns to go into it. So let's do that. I'm going to say select pattern, and I'm going to go to let's use this one. Let's see what a petal would look like inside of this. So I see the petal, here it is. So I cannot do anything with I cannot resize the pattern without resizing the picture too. You see how they're going to go together? So in order to see what this would look like, I can't do anything to the background. I can only do something to the pattern. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say edit, select all. So now everything is selected, and I'm going to size it a little bit, and I'm going to make my nodes invisible so I can see that pattern better. So now it's invisible, and let's just see if it will let me drag it, and it will. So let's see what this looks like in this block. So I could size this. Everything is selected, remember? So I'm going to just size it. Okay, so that fills it in a little bit bigger. But let's say I want to compare it to another pattern. I can still use all of my layers. So I can't directly bring another pattern in. I have to swap this one to the bottom layer first. So let's do that. I'm going to go to layers. I'm going to say swap layers. So this would be a time where I might want to change the color of that bottom layer, but let's just leave it for now. I'm going to say, let's select another pattern. Let's say maybe I want to see what this one looks like. So we'll open this one up, And here it is. It's nice and bright and pink, but I would want to see what does it look like inside of there. So again, I can't do anything with the background layer. I can only move the pattern and edit the pattern. So let's select all and let's move it. And there you go. This is a good, I'm glad it did this. It didn't want to move the whole thing. And so instead of dragging, it actually reshaped my pattern. So I'm just going to say undo. That's all I needed to do. And I'm going to say select all again, and I'll just go to move because sometimes the drag feature, it just doesn't want to work. And let's increase my step to large. And I can just use the arrows to move this to see what will it look like inside of my block. There we go. So this is just one way that you can audition some things by bringing in a background. But you could also use it if you wanted to draw something too. So let me show you that. I'm going to clear the pattern. And when you clear the pattern, you could even use the toolbox and say clear all. It's not going to clear your background. The only way to clear your background is go to background and say clear. That's the only way to do it. So I clicked on background and the clear button is right there. And then I would have to bring my grid back just like that. So let's scroll in a little bit back to normal. And so now I'm going to pick another picture. Let's go to background and I'll say load image. And here was a sketch of something that I was using with my Dresden plate. And it's rather large, so I would want to scroll out. But now I could draw on top of this. If I was going to draw, there are a lot of different ways I could draw. And we're going to be talking about that next. And so we're going to see this one again. But you could draw on top of this. But what's important to know is once you draw on it, this image is not going to save. So if you go to optimize, it's not part of optimize, cancel. If you were to go to save, your image is not part of the save. It's only your drawing that's going to save. And again, if you were to use your layers, it's only the active layer that's going to save. So you cannot save a drawing on top of your image. That's important to know. So that is what we're talking about in terms of with your layers. And the next section of this video is going to be about drawing with your nodes on and with your nodes off. But I want to just review a little bit about our what we've done with a PowerPoint slide. So let's go to PowerPoint. I'll bring it up. So here's our slide of our layers, and I just want to review just a little bit that you can have a total of 4 layers, but you can only work with 2 at a time, but you can see all of them at the same time. So you're going to often go back between the active layer and the inactive layer, or your top and your bottom layer, and you're going to only be able to draw and edit on the top layer. Although you're going to be able to see your reference layers at the same time, you cannot change any of these. You can't sew any of them out. You can't edit these in any way. You can with your bottom layer because you can swap back and forth between the 2 of them, and then you can merge them together as well. And now none of these layers are going to either not be there. They're just either going to be empty or nothing will be in them, any way you want to think about it. They're still going to be there. They just might not have anything in them. But all 4 of them are always going to be there. So I hope that is helpful for you with your layers, and we're going to move on to the drawing. Let's talk about now how to draw in PatternCAD. When you open up PatternCAD, you have your canvas or your different layers that are right here, but then you're going to want to start drawing. And there are 2 different ways to draw with PatternCAD. By default, it's on this method that's right here. I want to draw your attention to this area right here, what we call with your nodes on. And how you turn them off, let me just show you, is you click on that button and then you'll not have any numbers in there, and that would be considered nodes off. So let's turn them back on for the moment, and let's not worry about the number that's in there for right now, but let's just draw a simple line. So we're just going to draw, you left click and then you draw. When you unclick the button, you'll notice that you don't have, it doesn't draw anymore. I want you to now make sure that continuous line is checked. I want you to draw another line, but make sure you start away from where this one is. So I want you to see what it does. So now if I start drawing someplace else, notice that it's going to connect my stop point right here and to where I'm beginning again. And if I were to go into optimize, it has joined that line. It wants to make a continuous line. That's what that function does. I'm going to say, okay. So this is what we call with your nodes on, and I want you to notice kind of what QCT has done. You haven't had to lift up your mouse or whatever device that you're drawing with. You left clicked and you just drew. You watch on your screen, and whatever your mouse did, it drew the same thing on your screen for you. And you did not have to pick the distance that these nodes or these little circles, you didn't have to pick the distance that they're on. Now, if you're not seeing any nodes right now, make sure that this function is on. Say in the last section, we may have turned it off, and if you didn't turn it back on, you might not see those nodes. So what I want to talk about is the distance between these nodes. When you are drawing in QCT, what it is doing in this mode with your nodes on, it is actually drawing a straight line by default. These are actually straight lines, and it is just making little teeny line segments and joining together. That's what every single one of the nodes is. It's joining these segments together, and it is picking the distance between these line segments. And to prove to you that these really, in fact, are line segments, I'm going to do something. This is really a little bit of editing, but I'm going to point to a left click. Oops, let me turn this off. I'm going to say undo right here. I want to turn off the continuous lines, and I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to pull apart. I'm not going to select anything. I'm just going to pick a random point, and I'm going to pull on it. Now let's go to optimize. There you go. So now you can see that now this line has a start and a stop, and then this one has a new start and a new stop. Well, that's because really what has happened, okay, is that each one of these points, let me see if I can separate it all together. There we go. Now I can separate one all together, optimize. Each one of those nodes is its individual line. And what QCT is just doing is joining those nodes. And as you're drawing, it's evenly spacing those nodes to make a longer continuous line. And each one of those segments, though, has its own start point and stop point. And to make them so that it's continuous, you have a start point at one node, and then a stop point right here, and then a new start point right on top of it, and then a stop point. And that's how it's joining those segments together to create a longer continuous line. And then when you have whatever you have on your actives, and we're on the top layer of the active screen, the ultimate start point is right here with the green circle, and the ultimate stop point has the double red circle right here. So let's X out of that, and I'm going to draw this line again. We're going to turn that off, and we're going to go back to the draw menu right here. I'm going to say continuous lines. I'm going to make sure that it's in line this time so that what I am drawing when I'm drawing with the nose on here, it is really a straight line, because whether you realize it or not, you are drawing with different line types, even when you're drawing with your nodes on. So let's just draw a line, any old line just like this. And we can see that our line spacing is at 4. And I think this is going to help with understanding what all this means. So I want you to check the box if you're following along. So when I click inside that box, this box comes up and I can put a number in there. I'm going to put in 10. I'm going to say, okay. Now again, because my stop point is right here, wherever I bring my arrow, it's going to automatically join this. So I'm going to start drawing again, and I'm just going to try and echo what I just did. Now, with those spacing at 10, my nodes, the line segments, are further apart, just like that. So again, with my continuous line still checked, I'm going to bring it all the way down using my minus button to 1. So 1 is the smallest that you can have. The bigger you are, the bigger the number, the more spaced apart these nodes are. And the smaller they are, the smaller number, the closer they are together. So then again, it's going to automatically join this line for me. It's going to join it. So I'm just going to pick a point. I'm going to try and echo that line so I can show you. Now they're much closer together. And so when we go to optimize, it's made it a continuous line. Okay. So when you are drawing with your nodes on, you are not picking the distance between the nodes, and you are just essentially like freehand drawing. Whatever you're scrolling along or moving along with your mouse, it's just joining and doing all of this work for you. That's with the nodes on. So let's try it the other way with your nodes off. So I'm going to X out and clear everything off my screen. And how I can know my nodes are off is I'm going to click on this button. And then when there is nothing in this box, that means I am no longer drawing with my nodes on. So I'm going to draw with a line first. And I think I want to show you what each one of these lines looks like. And then this will also help you figure out what I'm talking about with your nodes on and your nodes off. So you're going to left click again, and let's just try and draw a square. So I'm going to left click. I'm going to go a couple of boxes, and I'm just going to stop touching my mouse, and it ends where I lift up my finger for the mouse. So now I'm moving my arrow, but I'm not clicking on anything. So I'm free to move. But when I'm in this mode without the nodes on, I can just bring and continuous line is selected. I can just bring my mouse to where I want that line to go and tap. And I'll bring it back over here and tap and bring my mouse over here, or my pointer, using my device, bring my pointer up to that and tap again. So you can see now QCT is not evenly spacing these. I am picking where these line segments are going to go. Now this is with straight lines. This is what I mean, that it's more like dot to dot drawing. So let me close this or erase it. Let's see what a spline looks like. I'm going to draw two lines. There's my first line. Now I'm just going to move my pointer and tap. There's my second line. I want to go to edit because now I need to shape that line. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to say select and select all. And now my handles that I've been talking about have appeared. So now to shape this line, I'm just going to left click and drag the boxes to direct that line where I want it to go. So now you can also, we have selected our endpoints, but you can also select these handles. And it's very different when you select your handles. In order to see what they do, you have to select at least two of them. So if you're drawing a line along and you start to edit and you have one box accidentally get selected, don't worry. It doesn't really show you, it really doesn't have a function unless you select two boxes. If I select two boxes of the handles at the same time, and I just drag on one of them, it is going to drag those boxes at the same time in the same distance. I could also do that with all of them. They're all selected. They'll all move at the same time. Then I can unselect all. Unselecting removes everything, and it unselects those boxes. I could say select all again. Those handles reappear. And again, if I'm just moving one of the boxes, it controls only one. So again, with each line segment, you have two handles for a spline. So I'm going to erase that. Let's see what an arc looks like. So I'm on draw. I'm going to choose arc. I'm going to do two lines again. I'm left clicking. Now I've let go. Now I'm just going to move my pointer and tap. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to say select all. And now I have two handles, and one for each line, not two for each line. So I'm going to left click. And as you can see, this is a circular shape. You don't have to make a circle, but it has one apex. I can't drag it this way or that way like I did with a spline. I can only move it like I'm going to make a circle. It only has, the handle is going to be exactly in between the two endpoints. And so it would make a circle if I wanted to, but it's circular in shape. And I can do these lines separately, or I can select them both and move them at the same time. Let's see what a parabola looks like. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to go back to draw. I'm going to select parabola. I'm going to draw 2 lines. I've left click. I'm going to release. I'm just going to tap for the second one. I'm going to say edit, and I'm going to say select all. So again, we only have one handle, but this time I can shift the apex of this curve back and forth in a way that I could not with the arc, but it is only one handle. So I can make a lot of different shapes with this. There we go. Again, if I were to select them both, I can move them at the same time. That's what that feature does. I'm going to erase this line. Another drawing tool is when you have snap to grid on. So go ahead, if you're following along now, click on snap to grid, and I'm going to show you in the other method of drawing. So I'm going to go to draw, and I'm going to turn the nodes back on. I'm going to put my spacing at 4. And now I'm going to try and draw a circle. And watch what happens. You're going to see it's very dramatic. I can't really draw a curve because my line is going to want to find a grid point. That's what it means to snap to grid. So if I try and draw a circle here, and now let me make my nodes invisible so you can see what I've drawn. It only wants to go to these grid points right here. And so if you're going to be drawing curves, that's not such a good thing. But let's turn my continuous lines off. If I was looking to draw with the nodes on straight lines, this would be very helpful, and that would be much easier to draw a box. And that's okay that it did that. I'll show you editing next with a straight lines with the snap to grid on. And fixing little boo-boo like that isn't any problem. Let me turn my nodes on, and I'm going to go to edit. And all I'm going to do is let me zoom in a little bit, scroll on over there. I'll select these 2 nodes. I'm going to say, I'm just going to try and drag them. There we go. I dragged it, and it wants to snap back up to that line. So if I zoom out and turn the nodes off, oops, it wasn't quite done yet. So let's go back. My node's on. Now we'll center this. There we go. We'll bring these lines up. It doesn't want to do that. I may need to delete that line. There we go. And bring these up. Unselect this line. PatternCAD likes to do unexpected things, I can tell you. I'm going to say unselect everything. I'm just going to join this by selecting this node. I'm just going to pull it over to that one. There we go. And so it wants to snap. It might have more than one line segment. Now let's look. The square does not, but we would have 2 line segments because they're not joined. That's what we would be expecting. So let's see what snap to grid looks like when we draw with the other way. So I'm going to erase everything. I'm going to go to draw. I'm going to turn off the nodes. And if I have snap to grid still selected, it will be very easy for me to start drawing straight shapes. So there we have just one straight line. I left clicked and dragged to this point, but now I wouldn't have to left click anything. I could just bring my cursor, my arrow, to where I want the next point to be and tap. I would have to put continuous line on there. Tap, 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 and boom, just like that, I have some straight lines. So snap to grid works great for squares. Now, in a way that you cannot draw triangles in the other method, let me just show you that really quickly. Let's go to draw. You can use both of these methods in the same screen, just so you know. So I'm in draw. I'm going to turn the nodes back on. It's still at 4. I'm going to turn continuous line off, and continuous and snap to grid is still on. If I were to try and draw a triangle with these nodes on, watch what it's going to do. See, it wants to snap as I'm going. Let's turn the node so you can see. It's very dramatic. So if when I'm trying to go in between these lines, it's not going to let me. It always wants to snap to these to the grid lines. But when I do this with the nodes off, it behaves very differently. I'm going to scroll out a little bit. I'm going to say draw, and I'm going to use line, and I'm not going to say continuous because I want to start this without it. If I want to draw a triangle now and say snap to grid, I can left click, and there's the top one. I can bring my pointer down to where I want the next line segment to go. Let me tap continuous first, and I tap right there, and I can bring my cursor right to there and tap again. And now I can draw a triangle. So there's no right or wrong way. You just have to pick the right method for the shapes that you want to draw. And again, you can go back and forth between these two methods. You can draw with your nodes off, and you can turn them on in the same screen. You can swap between layers to do different things with your nodes on and off. That is not hard. Let me show you that. I can bring your layers down to this. I can swap layers and say, well, what if I wanted to draw something inside of this square? And let's leave maybe I want a circle inside of the square. So let's go to arc. And if I were to start drawing now, I want to say continuous line. And if I drew a line right to here, now I want to talk about a special feature. This is a good time to do that. I've used the arc line, but I am going to now tap my space bar. Let me turn the nodes on so you can see. When I have tapped my space bar without going to any other feature or doing any other thing first, I'll show you this to you a few times, it automatically selected the last line that I drew so that I can shape that line without having to go into edit directly. So I'm going to go to draw. My nodes are on so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to just bring, because continuous line is selected, I just need to bring my pointer to where I want that line to end. I'm going to tap, and I'm going to immediately hit my space bar, and it is immediately going to select the last line that I drew so I can shape it because it automatically went to edit. This is the only time that I know of in PatternCAD that QCT will automatically go to edit for you, but then you do have to remember to go back to draw if you want to draw something else. So we have our layers that are underneath, and we have our active layer where we just did the circle. And if I wanted to merge them back, well, let's just swap them first. If I wanted to swap, because you can't undo merge. And then if I wanted to merge them together, I could merge them together. Now in Optimize, every single one of these is going to have a different line segment and different start and stop to it. And so if I were going to try and join these, this would be a good time to decide what order I want to put them in, and then start using the Optimize feature to at least get them in the order, and then figure out a strategy to join them. I'm going to say okay. And I think that is going to be the end of the how you draw section. The next section, we're going to be combining lots of the knowledge we used already to start editing. Since you can't really edit unless you have something to draw, we're going to be practicing some more drawing while we edit. A little while ago, I had gone into background and I had shown you a sketch that I had, and it isn't really a sketch. This is actually a clip from a free source on the internet, and it was just a copy and paste, or I guess I used clip, I think, to copy this and turn it into something that I could import in and then trace it. So I use this in my Dresden plate quilt. So let's just first try drawing the shape or tracing over the top of it with our nodes on, with this type of spacing, with this kind of drawing with your nodes on. Getting tired, sorry, I'm starting to run my words together a little bit. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm in draw. I'm going to make sure that I have the line on, because again, if I've been in PatternCAD and I've been going back and forth, it's important to realize that you really do have a line type even when you're drawing with this method, and you will run into problems when you go to edit if it's not in line when you're using this. So with the nodes on. So leaving it on 4 is fine with me. So I could make it smaller if I wanted to. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and copy this. So I'm going to make sure continuous lines is on, and I'm just going to give this a good old college try. I'm not super great with control. I've gotten some better with my mouse pad. Don't expect to be Picasso using this method. I think the people that I have seen that do really well with the drawing, first of all, they're very good artists to begin with. And I'm more of a copy and paste girl and trace it kind of girl, if I'm honest. But the people that are really good, I think that they probably have a stylus and a keyboard and a mouse all at once so that they can do all of that together. So if you are someone who wants to use a different device, you would want to practice obviously first um, to learn how to use these functions with whatever device that you're using. So, okay, getting there. Okay, so in this drawing, and all I've done is just trace over the top of it, I have a start right here and I have a stop right there. And that's probably not going to be great starting and stopping points for something that's going to be a continuous line if I want to do something more with this pattern. So it'll be something that I would have to edit. And how I choose to use this um, would determine what I would do next with it. So what I'm going to do first is, because I want to show you the editing tools, is let's just say I'm going to use this as the very basis of a new pattern. Maybe I want to make it into a pantograph. That's mostly what we want to do with things in PatternCAD, but not the only thing you can do in PatternCAD. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear the background, say clear, because I've now traced it. Clear. I'm going to put my grid back on there just because I like to have my grid. And now let's make the nodes invisible so I can see what I've got. So let's go into optimize. You can see it looks really shaky, and that's not unusual at all for using this method of drawing. And I can fix this. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, it is a continuous drawing. I can see my start is right here, my stop is right there. I'm going to say, okay. And this is where some of the editing tools come into play. So I'm going to go into the edit mode right here. And I'm going to say select, and I'm going to say select all. And let's turn the nodes on just so you can see it has selected all of them. And then I'm going to turn them off so I can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to want to do is I want to use this function right here. This is an editing tool called smooth. And you would only want to use this, and it will only work as expected. Let me just put it that way. You can always try and use something, but it will only work as expected when you have a lot of nodes. So I'm going to try the smooth function. So watch what happens when I tap on it. You can see it's kind of smoothing out some of those bumps that were made in there. And so if I only hit that maybe 3 times, and I would be happy with this. So I would want to save that. And again, I've already saved it once, but if you hadn't saved it, you would want to save it just like that. So now what do I want to do with it? Well, there's some other things that I could do. If I wanted to make it into just a pantograph on its own, let's check out where things are. So my stop is right here and my start is right here. So let's say, okay, if I wanted to now draw, and to have a pantograph, I would need to have a start and a stop that are in the same plane right here. So I would need to continue to draw. So maybe now I want to use the other kind of drawing. And let me say, I'm going to turn my nodes off and I want a spline. And I would probably want to bring my line probably down to about here first. And I'm going to turn my nodes back on. I'm going to say edit. I'm going to go up there. Let me find where that node is. So the end of my node is right here. I'm going to say unselect all to make sure I haven't selected anything. The end of that node is here, and the other end of that line is right here. And so now, good, my handles have shown up. So now I could kind of shape that line if I wanted to, give it kind of a curve if I wanted to. I could play with that line until I was happy with it. So, all right, I'm going to say unselect all. Let's zoom back out, and let's see what that looks like. So we have a hot mess here, and that's because when you're making a pantograph, what it's doing is it's trying to join your stop and your starts. You say, okay, and our stops and our starts are not on the outside edges of our pattern. So it's overlapping quite a bit. So now it would be really helpful if I could now draw some lines. I can edit this to bring some lines that come out of the outside edge of this pattern. And so let me go to draw. I'm going to say spline again, since it's in continuous lines, it's going to continue drawing from that stop point. So I want to pick a point that's outside of the widest part of my pattern right here. And so I'm just going to go, I'm going to click about maybe right to there. And when I hit my space bar, because I didn't do anything in between, when I hit my space bar, it will select those lines for me and I can shape them a little bit. I'm going to say unselect all. Well, what can I do with this one? Because these lines kind of need to be out here too. So maybe I can edit them. So I've zoomed in just a little bit and let's pick a bunch of these, maybe out to here and see if I can kind of pull it out to here. And that's good. Maybe if I change this line type, actually, it's not far enough. It needs to be out at least as far as the outer edge of this one. And I want it to be close to the end point on this side. So, okay, so let me now unselect. Let's see if we have a straight line right here. If I select this point and I select that node right there and nothing points, I get no handles right there. That means that I have a straight line and I can change this line type so that I can edit it. So I'm going to, with just these two nodes selected, if I wanted to change a whole bunch of lines at once, I could do that too. So this will apply to anything that's selected. I select what I want selected, and then I'm going to right click and this box comes up. I'm going to go to line type and I'm going to say, let's make it a spline. And there we go. Now I've got some handles to pull on. And so I can now kind of shape this line a little bit more to where I want it. I could maybe even pull that line just down a little bit, just a little bit. So now let me bring this one up. Maybe bring this one over a little bit, just to do a little shaping. That's what editing is all about, is when you're editing, you want to select edit so that you're in the edit menu, and then you want to select what it is that you want to edit, and then you want to pick an action of what you're going to do. So when you want to change a line type, you would right click and find what line type. If you wanted to maybe insert a line or smooth the lines, you would pick what you want to do, choose the action, and then do that. Then you always, when you want to go to the next thing, you want to make sure you unselect all. It's very easy to forget that you've had something selected, especially when you start zooming in like this and you can't see your entire pattern. So let's go on out here and let's see what it would look like if we have a pantograph yet or not. Well, it's not quite out of the way yet because it's overlapping a little bit, but we're pretty close to what we could do there. So let's do this. Let's select this line. I'm going to pull it out a ways. Unselect. Let's select this line. Maybe we'll pull that out a ways. And now let's select preview. Okay, well, now they're not coming together anymore, but I can see it's not continuous because these two line ends, my start, my stop, are not aligned. So let me say, okay. And we've got just that one selected. Now let's select this one and we use our snap ends feature right here. And we know what this menu says, so I'm just going to say yes. And so now it's moved one of my points, and let's see what it looks like. Well, there we go. Now we have turned a drawing, a little sketch, into something that's usable, into a pantograph. But, that's not all we can do with editing. So let's see if we can't copy and paste this. Maybe I want to do something more with this. Let me move these points in first. I'm going to move these in. Select that too. And if I can move them in together. So because I have them all selected, you see it because I didn't unselect the right hand side, what I'm doing. So this is why it's really important. That was intentional, by the way. So you would see that I'm going to unselect this one. I'm just going to try and move these in a little bit. So what I want to do is maybe copy and paste. And let's move this one down. Oops, I forgot. This time it wasn't intentional. Let me just say unselect and just select that point. There we go. And all right. So what I want to do now is maybe I want to make this have more than one flower in it. So let me say, I'm going to unselect all, then I want to select everything. And I don't have to redraw this. I don't have to save it and import it again. One of the things that you can do with the same pattern is copy and paste. So with everything selected, there is a little button, a function right up here that will allow you to copy something. So now you see that it copied, and I'm going to left click and drag to pull it apart, and kind of want to make it up away from everything first so that if I want to manipulate it, I can. I'm going to move over on my screen a little bit so we can do this. And maybe now what I want to do is maybe I want to rotate it a little bit. So with everything still selected, I'm going to pick an action and then the menu is going to change. So here's my action. I'm going to click rotate. And now I have some of these arrows right here. And if I wanted to go this way, I would need to hit reverse and I can go whatever these degrees are. I can get this to turn a little bit. Maybe I want to move it here. There we go. Maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller too. They don't all have to be the same size. So let's say size, lock, change my step a little bit, size a little bit. And again, before I join anything, I want to be sure I've got what I've got. What I mean by that is that if I want to do something with the full size, I'm not going to be able to have this option that I'm going to show you next. I'm going to say select, unselect all, sorry. So right now I have two different, they're the same design and they're both on the active page or on the top sheet. And if I want to select just one of them to continue working with it instead of all of them, I can use this button right here, select section. And when I do that and I go to edit, select section, and all I have to do is left click and pull a little bit of the ways to what I want that whole section to be. And now that whole thing is selected. Except for it didn't select these last two buttons because they're not joined in optimize. I didn't go to optimize, which was I should have done. So now if I want to copy just this flower, I would need to add that section to it as well. And so I have this flower all selected. So if I wanted to copy this size of the pattern or do something with just this half of the pattern, because we have two halves now, I could still do that. So I don't like to join my patterns together until I'm sure I have what I want. So what I want to do right now is I want to unselect. I want to go to optimize and I want to fix this right here. I can't say select or remove all because what it would do is it would then just join this. This is an actual jump stitch and we're seeing a jump stitch for the first time. These are not, it's not a break in the pattern. When you see a line like this, if I said remove all, let's do that, it would then try and connect these. I'm going to say cancel so it'll go back the way it was and go back into optimize. I don't want to do that. So I have some options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say check for breaks. I'm going to say animate stitching. When it gets to this one right here, I'm going to say, do I wish to remove this break? I'm going to say yes. Do you wish to remove this break? I'm going to say no. When it goes to this one, I'm going to say yes. Okay, now I'm going to say okay. So now I know that this is all one and this is all one. So let's go back to optimize. And if we were going to make this our pantograph, this is then in the correct order because we have one over here on the left and we have two on the right. So let me say okay, but maybe now I want to have the smaller one and a little bit rotated on that side. So let me go to edit, select, and I'm going to say selection, and it should select the whole thing, and it did. And let's say copy, and I'm going to drag it on over here, and let's move the screen a little bit. Drag it on up here, and let's rotate it the other way. So let's say rotate. Let's rotate it a little bit this way. And kind of get it close so that I know it can join. When it's close, they're not touching. That's good. Okay, so let's zoom out and see what it kind of looks like. Turn my nose off so I can kind of see. And you might play with it a little bit more, but my point is just to show you what you can do in the edit screen or with the edit function. So I think I'm going to be ready to join this. And there's a lot of ways I could do it. If I didn't care what those jump stitches might look like, I could just go into optimize and number this. So starting with one, I get 1, 2, 3, and I could just remove all. I could just simply do that if I wanted to, but let's not do that. I could, if I didn't care what it looked like, I could do that. But let's not do that. That's just one of the options. Let's turn my notes back on. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And so maybe what I want to do, I'm going to say edit. Maybe what I want to do is I want to say select, unselect all, is just move this point closer to this one. And I have to turn this off first to do that. So unselect all again and select this node. Maybe I just want to pull it on over to this one. And then, because I know I haven't joined them, I know that they're not joined. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say unselect all because I know only one of those points is actually selected. I'm going to select the whole thing and I'm going to snap it together. Now I know it actually is one node there, not two. So now, oh, it didn't join them. Let's try that again. Snap selected. It should let me. There we go. Now it's working. Kind of take both lines together now and edit them to make a better shape. And so I kind of did that. If I wanted, I could try and play with this a little bit more, but let's just move on. So I'm going to unselect everything. Now I've got to join the other one. And I can probably do the same thing with this one, but because I've got a whole bunch of nodes right here, it will probably be best to do this. Let's say unselect, grab this whole thing. Oops, not that one. Maybe do it this way. Unselect all, maybe then select these. See if I can't straighten it out a little bit. And what I might want to do now is just delete all of these. So let's try that out, delete. And then I have something that's easier to work with. I can select this one and then edit. So let me select that one. See if I can't get it to join right here. That's awesome. Now I'm going to want to snap these, and you can't snap a whole bunch at once. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to say unselect. I'm going to snap these first. Snap selected. And then I'm going to snap these. Snap selected. And maybe QCT has joined them all together, and maybe they haven't. Let's take a look and optimize. And it did. That's awesome. So now I've got something I can work with, and I don't think my endpoints are quite where I need them to be yet. So let's say, okay, let's scroll out and we'll go to preview. And I can see that they're overlapping, so I do need to move them out. So let's say okay with that. So let's go to zoom in just a little bit. We'll do the one over here first. What I really need to do is make sure that my endpoint here is beyond the pattern. And so I'm going to make sure everything is unselected. I'm going to select just that point. Let's give it a pull, make sure maybe I need it to come up here again. And if I can select that point right there, it's aligned. Let's change my line type, maybe to a spline. So now I can kind of give it a little bit of a curve if I want to. It's not so straight. Unselect. Let's go on over here and do the same thing. Let's see what our line type is already. If it has handles, it's got. So this is already a line type that's not straight, so that's good. And as you can see, when I selected it, it selected the box 2. That's okay. It's not going to have any effect unless 2 boxes are selected. So I'm just going to say unselect, select this point so I can move it. I want to move it out so it's beyond this point as well. Let's move it a little bit. And now let's preview. They're probably not at the right height. Again, so now they're not overlapping each other right here, but they are not the same height. So let me say okay. And now that one is already selected. I can zoom out. I can select this one. And I can say snap ends, and we're familiar with this message, so I can just say yes. And there we go. So now, all righty. So now we have used some more editing functions, and we have used rotate, and we have used this. We didn't have to use, yes, we did use size, and we've used move to draw, and with a sketch, having used a sketch and made a new pantograph. And you would absolutely want to save this. So I'm going to say okay. And if I saved it, oops, not select pattern. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say save. And you would want to bring it wherever you want to save it. Say, pedal panto, maybe. Enter and save that so you know where it's at. So that is one way. And we used the method of drawing with the nodes on. So let's talk about editing with the nodes off, some of more of the things you can do with that. So one of the things that you need to start thinking about when you're starting to join patterns or make patterns is a strategy to do that. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, there's more than one way to make a design. You can do it all in one shot. For example, if I wanted to use two patterns, let's say I want to join two patterns. I can immediately bring this pattern in and bring it to the bottom layer, and then select the other pattern that I want to join to it. Here's another pattern, and I could select all and move it. And so now when I get to this point, I kind of have a decision to make. Do I want to redraw this, putting stops and starts where I want, or do I want to try and use the patterns as they are and join them with the existing stops and starts? And that's something that only you can decide. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's just the way that works for you. And there shouldn't be any other question about it. Just use the method that works best for you. But what works for you may not be best for somebody else. So you should practice different ways of doing it and practice different strategies. And then you'll get to know which one that you're better at. Now, when I first started, I really was nervous about these insert functions, and I really wanted to learn how to draw. So for me, what I did is I started my own stop and starts. So then what I did was, okay, so now everything, this is on the top layer and this is on the bottom layer. So layers, I merged them together. Oops, I'm sorry. I wanted to merge the bottom to the top. So now they're both on the top layer. You got to optimize, and they're both on the top layer. So I know that they're both there. I'm going to say, okay. And then what I chose to do was then I said layers and I said swap. So now they're both on the inactive layer. And I decided that this would be a good way for me to learn how to draw using with the nodes off method. So let's practice that a little bit. So I'm going to say draw, and I want to start with a spline. And I want to start outside of my edge right here. And maybe where do I want it to join? Do I want it to join the middle? Do I want it to join? When I say join, where are the patterns and where is that pantograph going to come together? I could choose the middle. I could choose up here someplace. I could choose down here someplace, but I get to choose. And so I'm just going to say, let's just start about right here. So using the spline, I'm going to draw to here. I'm going to tap my space button, and I'm going to curve this line a little bit. And now, because I know when I use a zoom in feature that it will zoom in with this centered, it's bigger and I can kind of see more of what I'm doing. I'm going to just draw over the top of this. Now, you could draw this shape with a spline, or you could use a parabola. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, because I'm tracing it, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to draw, I'm going to tap my space button, and this is a parabola, so I could do a lot of things with it, but I'm just going to use that to make a nice gentle curve right there. And then I'm going to go back to draw. And because I'm an experienced drawer or artist, should I say experienced artist? Maybe I should. I know that this is an arc. So let me go to the arc shape. And if I go directly across and I tap the button, because remember, continuous line is selected, and then tap my space bar, I can then shape this line just like this. Now this is more of a spline. So let's use the spline function. Tap my space bar. So now I have a decision to make, because this is pretty symmetrical. I can copy and paste this, or I can choose to draw it again. So just since you haven't seen the copy and paste, let's try that one more time. So I'm going to say unselect all, and let me fix this point a little bit first. I'm just going to select it, and I can move it just a little teeny weeny bit. There we go. So that's more where I want it. And I'm going to select just what I want to copy and paste. So I'm going to say copy, and then I'm going to come over here to flip. I'm going to say flip, and I can choose to go over the y-axis or the x-axis. So I want to flip this way. So I'm going to say flip. And now it has attached to right here. So I'm going to unselect that node, and I'm going to move it. And then I'm going to make sure that's an edit. I'm going to say unselect all. I'm going to reattach this point right here. And to make sure you can see, if you look carefully, it's not one line anymore. So I'm going to say unselect. I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to say snap selected. So that's one point again. And now I can use this select section. So when I just left drag, now just that line segment is selected. So I can kind of drag it over here, drag it to these points just like that. And I can say unselect. Now I want to make sure that it wants to be continuous. So I'm going to snap some of these functions again, but I forgot to do unselect or to unselect the select section. So I'm going to say unselect all, and I'm just going to select this right here because there are two nodes right there and snap them into one. And I'll say unselect, and I'm going to snap these, say snap selected. And now I want to go to optimize and see what we have. Okay, we have a start. We have two line segments, and we don't really know what it wants to do. So let's unclick this, and it's going to show me a start and a stop right here. And now let's go to 2, and it has a stop and a start right here. Well, I don't want that. I need the start to be right there. So I'm just going to click on that button and look at that. QCT took care of it right for me, and now it's a continuous line. So I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go back to draw now, and continuous line is selected. So it should start drawing from that stop point. And I know it's a parabola, so I'm going to select parabola, and I'm going to go right here. I'm going to tap the space button, and I'm going to shape it. Well, maybe I don't want this line. I don't have to have this line if I don't want to. And so I'm not going to. I'm just going to choose to kind of go up to this one. So I'm going to say draw. I'll probably want to use a spline so I can kind of give it some kind of a shape. So with continuous lines, I'm just going to go right to here, tap my space button, my space bar, and give it kind of a shape. And I want to go to optimize to see if it's all one line, and it isn't. Because this is just a break, I'm going to say remove all. I'm going to say okay. Scroll on over here, and we're just going to start drawing again. I'm going to use parabola, or let's use spline this time. I can use spline to get the same shape in this instance, in which case I have two handles that I can choose from to get that line. I'm going to say draw, and now I want an arc. Pull that out, draw, arc. And I only know that these are arcs because I've taught this class many times and I have drawn a lot. And once you start drawing a lot, you'll know when it's an arc and when it's a spline. I promise you. You just start practicing and you'll know. Say draw, and let's use spline again, just so we can get used to using two handles. Again, I'm tapping the space bar in between right to there. Okay. So now I know in order to join these two patterns, I need to get the next line to be at least as far out as this one right here. But I probably kind of want to make sure I have, to make it look pretty, I probably want the same distance between this and this that I have between this one and that one when it becomes one. So this line is pretty far out right now. So this one will probably want to be pretty close. So let me say, when I do draw, I'm going to put it close first. I'm going to say draw, I want a spline. So let's see, let's just bring it about maybe right to here. Tap my space bar. I'll shape that line a little bit. And let's start previewing and seeing what we've got. So, okay, we know it's not continuous, and we've got about the same spacing. So if this is my pattern, we've got about the same spacing right where it's at. So I want to say, okay. So really all I need to do is adjust the height of these, and it should be pretty close to what I want. So let's unselect all and select these two right here. And I'm going to say snap selected. Oops, that was a mistake. That's not what I meant to do. So I'm going to undo. Let's select them again. I want to snap ends. I want to snap my ends. I get the message that I'm expecting, and I'll say yes. So it'll adjust the height. And let's take a look at the preview. So now it's a continuous line, and the distance between this one and that one are pretty close. And maybe I would want to work on this curve. So if I wasn't happy with how that looked, I could say unselect all. Let's bring this down a little bit. Select this one. I can bring this one down a little bit. And let's say preview now. That looks a little better. I might be happy with that. Say okay. And then say snap ends and yes, and preview it out. So that looks better to me, and I might be happy with that. You could play with it if you needed to. You could try and make this more curvy. There are a lot of things, particularly when you get to a point where you're comfortable working with some mirrors, where you could use the tools endpoint continuity, where that would help you. But I'm not going to show that in here because the mirrors are a whole different thing to work with, and you don't want to start with mirrors right away. So I would be happy with that. And that was the way that I learned how to draw, was just by tracing things rather than try and connect them, because it forced me to start using the draw tools. Ultimately, you might want to draw all four of these together. So then you would have another decision you want to make. So you would have some options. You can, with this one on the top level, on the top layer, you could save just this. So let's do that. Cards, I'm going to say 2, enter, save. Now let's swap layers and bring those two up that were underneath of there, and we're going to delete them. We're going to clear that layer. So this was on the bottom. Let's bring this back up to the top. Layers, swap layers. So now this is back on the top. Our pattern that we've already drawn is on the top, and there's nothing on the bottom layer. So if I want to bring in another pattern, I would need to swap layers, select pattern. What if we wanted to now work with a heart pattern? Add that to the list. Add this. So when I talk about using a strategy, you would have a lot of different strategies. You could choose to put in all of the shapes you wanted all at once and then have them on the bottom layer. So you would use, your swap layer feature back and forth to get all the patterns that you wanted all at once on the bottom. Or you could do two at a time, bring in the first one and then bring in the second one. Now this is on the bottom layer, and I could choose, well, where do I want to move this one? And I could say unselect all and then select all and move it to where I want it to be. Maybe I roughly want it to be right here. And then I could start adding them this way. So I would bring this one up to the top and then, add some tails to this one. So there is no right or wrong way to do this. You could have all of yours already here and then draw on top of them. You could have all of your shapes on one layer and then use insert line to insert lines to the already existing start and stop points. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There are just different options for whatever it is that you want to do. So like for me, I didn't want to have this bottom line, so it was fine for me to draw over the top of it. And so if I was going to do this, now I would probably move this out a little bit. And I have this already here. If I wanted to just, for this pattern, since it doesn't have that bottom spot, maybe I just want to use the heart that's here. And so I could manipulate, knowing that it's easier to manipulate my start and my stop points by having this layer on the underneath still. I might choose to draw and edit this by keeping this one on top first. So I'm going to go to optimize, make sure it's 1, and it is. I'm going to say okay. And now I know if I'm going to make this a pantograph and I need to have a line that goes out this way. So let's go to draw. I probably want a spline and it's around that height and I need it to be outside of this box. So let's draw it because I had continuous line is always going to draw from the stop point. Tap my space bar and those are my handles to kind of shape this line. I could go kind of up so that this one is making a different shape. And then I also need to have the tail that goes over here. So I can go to optimize and let's get rid of this one. It's just a jump. I mean, it's just a break in the pattern. So I can say remove all, and then I can say reverse so that my stop is right here. Say that. So now I can go to draw and I'll use spline again and I'll bring that point right to there and I can shape it so it's a little bit happier. Maybe it's a little smoother curve than it was over here. And I might be happy with that. So let's take a look. Before I go, I want to make sure this is all one continuous line, and it's not. So I'm going to say remove all, and I need my start point to be right here. So I'd want to reverse all before I swapped, except for now I don't need to swap. Now what I want to do is merge. So I want to go to my layers, and I want to say to merge the bottom one up to the top. And so let's go to optimize now to see what it wants to do. Well, it's pretty much done all the work for us. It did go ahead and bring this one as the first line, and it's very close to where it needs to be. So I probably only need to say remove all and it will be continuous for me. And in fact, it did. So I'm going to say, okay. So now I have this pattern and I can see what it looks like. And it is continuous. And now I've got 3 of the 4 card symbols. And if I wanted to join the other one, Again, I have options. I can bring this to, I would have to bring this down, swap layers, bring it down to the bottom layer first so that I could import this one. And there's the diamond. I can say open. I don't want to select it all and decide where do I want to move it to? Do I want to move it over here? Do I want to move it over to this side? It wouldn't really matter. It would be easier to go in this direction. And I would place it where it wants to be placed, and then I would have a decision to make. Do I want to use the start and the stops right here, or do I want to bring this layer up to the top first and then bring them all back down to the bottom and start all over? Because maybe I want to start moving this. Maybe I'm not happy with this point. There's a lot of ways that you could do this, but I'm going to leave it as it is so I can show you another function. So we have right here a continuous pattern because the start and the stop are in the same place. But for drawing purposes, it would be better if that start and stop were on the bottom. So I can do this. I want to say unselect all. And because those are right up on top of each other, I'm going to select this. I'm going to use the edit feature that's over here in tools. It says move my start point. I'm going to move it. So now my start point and my stop point are both right here. I was only able to do that because even though it's shaped as a diamond, it was continuous and the start and the stop points were right up on top of each other. So that's the only reason I can do that. And I can control this when it's isolated, when the pattern is completely isolated. So now if I wanted to draw from here to here, I could do that. I could say draw, but it's going to go from the end point first. So it's going to go in this direction. It would be easier for me to go in this direction. So I'm going to say draw, and I'll use a spline once again, and I'll put it over here, tap my space bar, shape my line, go to optimize, and you can see that it's a benefit to keep each shape. To me, at least I think it's a benefit. So you can isolate the shape and get it optimized all by itself first. That's like just the bomb so that you don't have a whole bunch of things that you have to sort out. It's really great if you will optimize as you go. And so isolating them in this method, keeping the other layers, the other shapes on the bottom layer until you really need them is really the way to go with that. At least that's the way I do it. So I need to reverse this so that my stop is right here. And now I can draw a line to get it to there. Say draw, use the spline, bring it close to there, and let's shape this line. Kind of looks like this now. Now I'm going to say optimize, and it did stay in one line. That's super, but I want to remove it so that my start point is right here. I'm not remove it, reverse it. So reverse all, and I say okay. Now I'd want to merge these. Layers, merge the bottom to the top. Now everything is on the octave layer. Let's go up to optimize. And it is starting from over here and it wants to finish over here. And let's use the other method. Let's say okay. And let's unselect, like select this one right here and say snap selected and see if it made it one. And it did. So just by snapping those together, snapping those 2 points together, it corrected itself and now it's one continuous line. So there are some other things that you can do when you use transform group. One of those is if you say select all, and this is an editing option, you can say transform, and you have some options up here, stretch, skew, and warp. Now these, you can, it automatically is by stretch, you can drag these and it will do all of your points all at once. Everything is in your box, everything that was selected, just like this. You see, we wouldn't really want to do that with this one because it'll start overlapping on itself. But these are some of the functions that even though they're not in the blue right here, that you can edit with. But you have to, again, go to edit, you have to choose select, and you have to choose what you're going to transform first. What are you going to edit? So you always have to do that first. So let's try inserting a point. And that's one of the last things I want to show you. So if we wanted to insert a point, maybe we've decided that we want to add something, a little loop or something in between this. If I wanted to do that, I want to say unselect all, and I would want to start breaking up my points. When you select a point to edit, you can see that you can move it, right? You can move this point. If you try and do that, with it unselected, you will break the 2 points together, apart like this. So move them back together, and then I would edit and snap it back together. Let me just go to optimize, see what it's going to do. It still wants to keep it, so I'd say remove all. Okay, I'm going to say okay. So if I wanted to insert something, maybe I want to put a little loop right there. I could break these lines apart, and then I could say draw, and I could say to insert a line is different than drawing. So let's move this. Oopsie, I'm sorry. Undo over here. So edit, select this line again, and then it will center it when I go to zoom in. So let's kind of move this point around a little bit. So now I want to say draw. If I want to insert a line, I would need to say edit, and I would select this point, and I would select this point, and then I could say insert. Now, if I select these lines, it tells me that it's a spline because it has 2 handles on it. So then I could kind of shape that line if I wanted to make it into some kind of a loop, loop-de-loo, and that's a loop all the same. I could try and play with it more, but my whole point is just to show you that that's how you insert the line. That's how you would break something apart. If you wanted to have a pattern and insert something into that pattern, you would need to, with the nodes unselected. It's like, let's say, here's a better example. Let's say I want to do this. I'm doing this again without a script. Let's say we want to have an echo inside of this heart. So let's do undo. I can undo several times. Let's see if it'll go all the way back to that. It will. So let's go to optimize. Good, it's all one. I'm going to say, okay. Let's say that I want to insert some kind of an echo into this. So I'm going to unselect everything, pull this apart, pull this apart. And so let's go to optimize and see where it ends. So I'll probably want to start to keep it continuous. It would go up this way, and the stop point is right there. So if I wanted to echo, I'd want to then go this way. Change that. Start, stop. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, that's right. So now if I want to draw, I have to start. So if I want to insert something into this, so I'm going to unselect continuous line. Otherwise, it would start from the other end where my ultimate stop point is. But I need it to start from right here. So I'm going to say draw. I'm going to say a spline. I'm going to draw a line from here to here. Tap my space bar and let's shape it a little bit. Now I'm going to go draw. I'm going to say arc right to here. Oops. Draw, arc, continuous line. Now let's try a spline. Bring it down to here. All right. Unselect. Now I could go to this whole mess right here and say snap selected. It's going to bring them all together for me. But I can see, because it says my start and my start pointer in the same, it's got the big and the red and the blue, the red and the green. I'm not sure what it really wants to do, so I'll probably have to do some things inside of optimize. So yeah, that's what we'll have to do. So we have a stop point over here, which we don't want. We want the start point here. So let's uncheck this. And this is showing us what our first line is. And it has our start point over here and our stop point over here. We don't want that. We're going to reverse it. There we go. That's 1. Now let's go to 2. Okay, so now it's saying 2 is right here, and that's where we want it to be. That's good. Let's say, where's 3 going? 3. Oh, it only has, nope, it wants to do 2. It doesn't want to do 3. So it wants to come back over here and have a jump stitch. So in order to fix this, I'm going to have to say, okay, I'm going to go over here. We're going to separate these lines a little bit. So let's go into optimize and see what it wants to do now. Okay, so it's making this one line, and this is a continuous line. I need to break that one apart. I'm going to say, okay, I actually need to break this one apart first, and then I want to join all of these, unselect. So what it had done is, once I started adding these lines together, it joined them in such a way that I couldn't get this one as it was to sew out without a jump stitch. So I just pulled it apart And I'm just going to kind of work with this one all by itself first, or this section of it all by itself, leaving this unattached. And I'm going to go through to optimize. Again, I'm doing this on the fly. This is what I would do in real time, really and truly. And I'm going to first snap all these together first. Snap selected. And now let's go to optimize and see how that wants to stitch out. So what it wants to do is go 1, 2, 3, and I don't want it to do that. We're going to make it go 1, 2, and then it's already joined that together for me with a jump stitch right there. And then that's going to, I hope that you saw what that did. And I have a start right here. It joined those where I wanted them to join. So now this is its own piece. And now I can join them together to make it one continuous line. I feel like I'm not explaining this well. It's hard to explain what you're doing and when you're editing. All right, so what I need to do is now move this one over. So I'm going to say edit, I'm going to say select. And because this is no longer joined to the rest of this, if I use select section and just go on one node, the whole thing is going to be selected. And I can just move it back to where it was, right? Like that. There we go. I'm going to say unselect. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to go to optimize. I want to see what it wants to do now. That's good because it still wants to do all of this as one piece. And then that one it wants to be second. So now if I say remove all, now I have a continuous line. So that's how it's not very pretty, but that's how you would insert something into a pattern, into an existing pantograph. And that is an editing feature if you're going to edit some patterns. So we've talked about a lot of things, and I've done a lot of the functions inside of Optimize already. So I'm going to add a little bit of Optimize just by talking about Optimize right now, the features that we haven't talked about, and just so that we can be sure that I covered everything, I'll talk about each of these features. First, let's talk about the animate stitching feature. So you can click animate and it will show you how it's going to draw out. Now you have a speed right here, and I have not found that changing the speed is supposed to change the speed, but I don't find that it changes it that much. But you could bring it down to 1 and then say animate again. And that to me looks like it's going faster or not changed at all, but I don't know. But you can change the speed. And you can also check for breaks. If you have a break in this pattern anywhere, I think I've shown this to you once before. If there was a break, it would stop at the break and it would give you a message. Do you want to remove that break? And you could choose yes or no. So that's what the check for breaks does. And that's what the speed does. And that's what animate stitching does. That's all right through here. Well, now we have the reverse all button. So that is talking about your endpoints, your stop and your start points. If you have a whole bunch of line segments, if you say reverse all, it's going to reverse all of them. So be careful when you choose this feature because again, it's going to choose all of them. If you have a whole bunch of jump stitches or stop and starts that are in the wrong direction, you can choose auto reverse first, and QCT might actually fix it for you. If you might have 1 or 2 sections in there, say you're editing a pattern, you've drawn something and you didn't edit as you go, or you've bought a pattern and it's got some issues with it, and you bring it in, and you could bring it into Optimize, and if it has 1 or 2 sections in it that look weird to you, you can always try the auto reverse, and it might try, it says there must be a pattern with 2 sections for auto reverse to work. So it will only have a function if you have at least 2 sections in it, and then it's going to do its best to try and make a continuous line. But it may not correct all of them if you have a whole bunch. So just, you know, that that's what it does. If you were to have a trim line in here, jump stitches, you can uncheck this button. And because I don't have any, you won't see what that function does, but it would remove the lines so you could just see your endpoints, or you can make sure that it's on. I would usually want to have them on. That way, if you have a jump stitch versus just a break in the pattern, you can see where it's going to be going to, and if it's something that you can edit quickly, or if it's something that's going to be more involved. Then you have your show function right here and the box that goes with it. So your show function has 2 purposes, really. When you uncheck it, if you have more than 1 line segment, it will, whatever number is in this box, it will show you the stop and the start points and highlight only that particular line. So in this one, I only where we're at right now, it only has one line. Let me say, okay, if I were to pull something apart so that it had two and go to optimize, well, now it has two, and it will show you which lines are going to stitch out, where their endpoints are, where that break is in the line, and you can see what order it's going to be in. So if I wanted to put this back together, I would want to again look in this box because I can change the stitching order when I'm in optimize. So with number one in this box, I'd want to make this number one. And now this is number two, and that's good. My stop point is right there. My start point is right here. That's good. So I can probably just put it back together. So if I say okay, and if I were to make sure it's an edit and select this point, kind of bring it back on up there, I can say unselect all, and just so we can show how this feature is going to work, I'm going to say optimize, and now it still wants to have a jump start because it wants to start at the wrong end. See number one, but it has the stop point over here. So if I just tap on this line, it reverses it. So now I have one here and two is right here, but we see that there's it's in the wrong order. The start point is right here and the stop point is right here. I'm going to click on that line. Good. All right. So now the stop and the start points are close together. But now what I want to do is I could have tried to snap these points together. My point is when you don't have a jump stitch, you can just say remove all and it will join them for you. It will snap them for you. And you have a stop and a start in the right order. So that is the section that we have on editing. There are a lot of other things you can do with edit, but those are the basics, and you're probably going to use these the same way over and over again. And it is very good practice to just pick some patterns, put them on your bottom layer, and just draw over the top of them and try and add some things together. Draw and edit, draw and edit, and that is really a good way to practice. The very last thing that I want to show you is how to use Select and Sew and PatternCAD together. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to erase everything. And I'm going to close out of PatternCAD. But I want you to look right here that there's nothing under the swap right here. There's nothing underneath here. So I just want you to be aware that there's nothing right there. So I'm going to close out of this. I'm not going to save anything. I want to go into Select and Sew. If you have a really complicated pattern, think dream big. Think of your dream big panels. I'm going to say, okay, when you want to use Select and Sew, that's for placing your patterns, not panographs. It will always make you pick a pattern first to get into Select and Sew, and it doesn't really matter which one you pick. So I'm just going to pick the one that usually occurs in the top block because you're not, for what I'm going to show you, it's not going to stitch it out. So I'm going to say open. And here's the block that I just selected, but I don't want to use it. So I'm just going to move it out of the way. So to use this method, you would want to be at your frame, because if you were at your, just think dream big, think that in your head, you would want to then trace a petal or the shape that you want to put in your irregular pattern into. So let's just say that I'm at my frame and I would want to go to the toolbox and I want to use the marking tool. So here I'm in the marking tool and I'm at my frame and I'm going to draw a petal. Fair warning, I'm very bad at this when I don't have something to trace. So I'm going to just kind of make a petal right here. And this is very rough. I'm not very good at it when I don't have something to trace. Oh, that's really bad. That's okay. That's okay. So I think it's got to have a point like that. Maybe we'll go back this way. Add. Okay, there's my very poorly drawn petal, but there it is. So if I have now used the marking tool, and this is my real life tracing of the petal because I'm at my frame and I've traced it, and then I close out of Select and Sew and immediately go into PatternCAD. Now we have this new button right here called Safe Area. So when I click that button right here, this is actually, those red lines are my safe area, and this is my actual marking right here. That's the marking that I just made. So now I have this, it's going to act like a template. So it's not anything that I can edit, it's not anything I can do with, but I see the shape. And so I have two active layers and this one that I can play with. So if I wanted to go and pick a pattern, let's say I'm going to go to patterns and I want to put this one in there, a petal shape. It pulls in at whatever size it wants to pull in at. And I can say select all, and I'm going to edit this pattern first so that it will fit in that space. So I'm probably going to go to size first. Let's make my nodes invisible. And I want to lock it in the beginning at least and change my step. And let's just shrink it. Smooth it a little bit too. I can see you're definitely going to need to rotate it. So let's click reversed and rotate it a little bit. And we'll just keep moving it a little bit. And let's size it till it fits inside of there. That's not great. Let's rotate it just a little bit more. Reverse. All right. So it's not in there great, but that's okay because we have a function in select in PatternCAD that you do not have inside of select and sew, and that is your transform group. This is where this is just an amazing feature. So if I now transform the group, you're going to have these three boxes right here, and you're going to have more than one. You have stretch that has these boxes. You have skew that has the corner selected, and then you have warp. I love warp for something like this because what it's going to allow me to do is to warp and pull on this pattern to get it to fit as best I can quickly within PatternCAD. So I'm going to left click on this right here. That's going to pull that point out a little bit. I can maybe push this one in a little bit until I get that side to fit inside of there. And I can, in fact, zoom in so I can see it better. But when I do, I have to do that again and say select all, say transform group, warp again. All right. So now I can see a little bit clearer that I want to kind of get that point to come up to there. Well, maybe now I want to widen some of these out. I want to pull that out so it fills this box in a little bit better. You can see I am reshaping this in a way that you cannot do in select and sew. So now it's kind of within this boundary. This one might need to come up a little bit. I can do that. Maybe I want to pull this one out. What happens when I pull that one? It's pulling further and further. And I can play with this until it's like the best that I can get it. And here's the other great part. So let's say I'm happy with that. So now all I have to do is go to quilt. When I hit this button, quilt, anything that's on the active layer. So if I had wanted to use another pattern to put inside of this empty space right here, by the way, I could do that. I could just go to layers and I would say swap layers. Now that's on the bottom layer. And I could go to select and sew and pull up anything else and put it inside of there. I'm not going to. I'm going to say cancel. I'm going to bring this back up to the top. But you would then merge the bottom to the top. And then I'm just going to say swap layer so it's back on the top. When everything that you want to sew is on the active layer right here, you're going to go to quilt and it's going to go back to select and sew. But you have to save it first. I'm going to say OK. So I don't want to save it as petal because I've edited it, right? I want to have the real pattern. So you would not ever want to save over the top of what your real pattern is. So I can call it anything. I'm just going to call it one so I can get through the screen. I'll say one, I'll say save. It's going to go right back into select and sew. And here we are. You can see it's inside just as we left it inside of PatternCAD. Well, now I'm going to say, okay, well, now I want to quilt it. So I'm going to say quilt, and it's going to give me a message. It's going to say the pattern has not been placed. Do you wish to proceed? Okay, well, I didn't place it in select and sew, but I have already placed it inside of PatternCAD. So I'm going to say yes. So I will say yes to this. And there we go. It is all ready to quilt. It's got my marking on the outside. It's not going to stitch the marking. It's only going to stitch the pattern. And I will just pull the bobbin and give it a sew. So this is my PatternCAD class, and I am sure there are things that I messed up, and for that I'm going to apologize in advance. But I can offer this class to you individually, and I'm going to keep this up for 30 days, and I really hope that you will like and share. So I would love to see people using PatternCAD more often if they just knew how to use it. Okay, so let's go over the big ideas that we talked about today. How we talked about layers and that you have more than one layer that you can see all at one time, and you're going to go back and forth between your top layer and your bottom layer the most, and with your reference layers that you can't do anything with. You have two different ways to draw, and neither one is better than the other. They just behave very differently. So you should practice how you're going to draw and which one you're more comfortable with. With editing, editing is so important, and you can't do drawing without editing. And you can't do editing without optimize. So when you're going to be editing, make sure you select what you want first, and then you choose an action afterwards. So make sure you select and unselect so that you're selecting only what you want, and then choose an action, and then unselect so that the next thing you select or the next thing that you edit isn't the same thing, or acting on something that you didn't want. That's a little bit wordy. Sorry about that. And then optimize. You're going to want to optimize as you go because ultimately you're going to be stitching this out. Remember that in your layers, the reference layers are not going to stitch and they're not going to stay save. But when you optimize all these other things that you do with your layers and with your drawing, importing things and exporting things and shifting your lines, you want to have probably ultimately one continuous line. And it is much better to try and optimize as you go so that you're left with a continuous line at the end, or something you can make into a continuous line without too much of a headache. So those are the four big ideas. And now I think I'm done. Happy quilting.